All right, good people of Melbourne. It's 5:31 p.m, so we're going to start this Future Melbourne Committee meeting, and it's good to see so many familiar faces in the chamber this evening, some who we haven't seen here for some time. All the better. All right, I declare this meeting open at 5:31 p.m, and I welcome councillors, management and members of the public attending tonight's meeting, both in person and virtually. I note that Councillor Mark Scott will be joining the meeting virtually. Great to see you on the big screen, Councillor Scott. We are meeting on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country, and I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we govern, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin, and pay respect to their elders past and present. We acknowledge and honour the unbroken spiritual, cultural and political connection they have maintained to this unique place for more than 2,000 generations. This meeting is being streamed live, and the recording will be published on Council's website by close of business tomorrow. The unconfirmed minutes of this meeting will also be available from the Council's website as soon as practicable. I request that all mobile phones be turned off or to silent for the duration of the meeting. I do note that today is the 11th of November, Remembrance Day, where we remember and honour all those who have fallen in defending our nation and our way of life. And so I'm going to propose that we pause for a moment of silence to remember those good souls. Lest we forget. We move on to agenda item 2, disclosure of conflicts of interest. If any councillor has either a general or material conflict of interest as defined in the Local Government Act 2020 in relation to a matter to be considered by committee, please disclose the type and nature of the interest prior to consideration of the item. Agenda item 3, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. I call on a councillor to move a motion adopting the minutes of open meeting number 18 held on Tuesday the 21st of October. There is the motion on the screen. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Gladys Liu. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Scott as well. I declare that carried unanimously. We move to agenda item 4, matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting. I ask councillors whether there are any matters arising from those minutes that they wish to call out. No. We move on to submissions and correspondence. The following submissions have been received in accordance with the Council's governance rules. In relation to agenda item 6.1, East Melbourne Heritage, we have request to speak from Greg Bissonella from the East Melbourne Group and Chris Thrum. We have items of correspondence from Chris Thrum, Sylvia Black from the East Melbourne Heritage Society, they do great work, and Sophia Mercer. In relation to agenda item 6.2, Ministerial Planning referral for Mackenzie Street, we have a request to speak from Michael Henderson from Contour, B. McNicholas and Dr. Stan Capp, who will be joining us on Zoom. And we have items of correspondence from Trish O'Loughlin from the mighty Carlton Residents Association, Margaret O'Brien, Charles Sowerine from the Royal Historical Society of Victoria, great organisation, Fiona Bell from the Protectors of Public Lands Victoria, B. McNicholas again, and Dr. Stan Cap again. In relation to agenda item 6.3, ministerial planning referral for 141 to 151 Sturt Street, we have a request to speak and items of correspondence from Sarah Thomas from Urban Planning Collective and from Tony Penner from the South Bank Residents Association. In relation to agenda item 6.4, we have ministerial planning referral again for 184 to 192 Lorimer Street. We have a request to speak and an item of correspondence from Jay Hollerick from Hollerick Town Planning. In relation to agenda item 6.6, Melbourne City Council Administration Buildings Smoke-Free Area Proposal. We have an item of correspondence from Mark Gray. In relation to agenda item 7.1, notice of motion, Deputy Lord Mayor Campbell, which is concern over the congestion levy. We have a request to speak from Chris Thrum and Aaron Moon. Joining us via Zoom, we have correspondence from Bill Lang, Danielle Rose, Luke Harris, Chris Thrum and Aaron Moon. Submitters will be invited to address the committee at the time of the relevant agenda item is being considered. Now, is there anybody's name who I have not read out who did wish to speak to any of the agenda items that are before us this evening? No, good. The system has worked. We move on to our next agenda item, public questions. A 15-minute period will be provided at the beginning and also at the end of this meeting for members of the public to ask questions. Members of the public may either submit public questions in writing or register to ask a question in person or live via audio link. Questions should not be greater than 90 seconds in duration, and I remind folks that this is not the time to make submissions on agenda items that are before us later in the meeting. As at 10 a.m. today, there have been 3 written public questions received, 2 of which will be asked in person. I note that in reading out these questions, we're not attesting to the veracity or factual nature of the statements made. I now invite Mary Masters from North and West Melbourne Association to ask a question via Zoom. Okay, Mary is not currently online, so we'll move on to the next question, which is from Honorary Councillor Chris Thrum. Great to see you at Town Hall, Chris. I'm not sure if you were out at Flemington for Spring Carnival or whether there's going to be a horse racing reference in your question upcoming, but knowing your track record here at Town Hall, there's a good chance there will be. And we're looking forward to it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for the kind words. And I can confirm that things are looking good 2 legs into the quadrella on Saturday, Derby Day. We're looking in anticipation to the remaining of Carnival. If I gave you the details on what occurred since, you'd say that's racing. But I did appreciate the performance of Tentaris on Derby Day. That was a good watch. Warney too, that was a tremendous performance on Derby Day too. Fantastic omen punting there from some people. Derby Day was good, I can say that.
Some may say your skills and insights are wasted here at FMC meetings. Do you have a question for us, Chris?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And thank you for the moment of silence for all the fallen people from previous conflicts. Much appreciated. Also, too, it's worth noting, too, that it's 50 years to the day since the dismissal of Gough Whitlam's government, and a lot of people love the work that Gough did for the citizens of Australia. One of the things that Gough did was he introduced Medicaid, which is the precursor to Medicare, and Gough was concerned about health care coverage for all the citizens of Australia. So I think Gough will be happy to see the City of Melbourne aligned with the City of Yarra in trying to save co-health and to ensure that all those citizens can have the right to have healthcare coverage. And we do respect the legacy of Gough Whitlam. The question is, City of Melbourne's aligned itself with City of Yarra about co-health, and you're fighting for co-health. We appreciate that. In regards to the policy of the state government in terms of public housing towers, the City of Yarra rejects the narrative that all the public housing towers have to be demolished. City of Yarra is calling on the state government to release all the technical sort of analyses of structural and engineering of the public housing towers. They think it should be evidence-based. We need to protect everyone in those communities from their homes. The big picture is we need to build more houses, but the bigger picture is, we need to protect everyone in the public housing towers, and we need to protect those communities. The question is, having committed yourself to align yourself with the City of Yarra to protect co-health, could the City of Melbourne councillors and management team consider and read and understand the City of Yarra's position in regards to public housing towers? And could you discuss amongst yourselves that it would be appropriate to align the City of Melbourne with the City of Yarra in their policy to reject the narrative that all public housing towers have to be demolished?
All right. Thank you for that question, Chris Thrum. Over to our lead in Community Health and City Services, Councillor Gladys Liu.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for your question, Chris. I just want to say we do acknowledge the impact of the high-rise redevelopment program on the residents who call these towers home. The City of Melbourne is advocating to Homes Victoria for the best outcomes for the community before, during, and after the redevelopment. We are working alongside our neighbouring councils in the M9 region, and we are active in the local communities impacted by the redevelopment project. We also collaborate with local organizations, services, and community groups to support residents to have access to the information and support they need. In December 2024, if you remember, the City of Melbourne management made a submission to the North Melbourne public housing sites visioning process, which detailed 34 recommendations across the following themes. So the first one is significantly increase the quantum of social housing on the site, ensuring that current residents' right to return and future need for social housing can be supported. Our second theme was adherence to the Macaulay Structure Plan to ensure that any redevelopment is designed to meet the needs of the growing local community. We also collaborate with City of Melbourne in master planning with nearby council projects, including the new North Melbourne Community Hub. And the last one, main theme that we have is to deliver a high level of community engagement and ongoing support for residents to thrive. So as you can see, all these recommendations were very important, and this is what we do. And we also have submitted these to the parliamentary inquiry into the redevelopment of Melbourne's public housing towers in March 2025. The City of Melbourne being supportive of adaptive reuse of existing buildings is evidenced through the retrofit Melbourne Plan and adaptive reuse guidelines as well. Council has always demonstrated retrofitting our own buildings, and a good example is the Macroom project. So thank you again for your question, Chris.
Thank you. Got a follow-up question?
Yes.
Yeah, I would urge Councillor Liu and the other councillors to consider making sure that you are committed to the regeneration and the retrofit of buildings. And that's a policy that I think the City of Yarra is advocating in their decision to reject the policy of blanket demolition. And I would urge councillors and management team, all of you, please read carefully the City of Yarra's submission to the parliamentary inquiry. Read it and understand it, and then reconsider the answer that has been given today.
Thank you very much. We are very aware of other councils, what they're doing, but I can reassure you, our management and also our council colleagues have been very active in considering retrofitting our buildings always.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Thank you,
Lord
Chris
Mayor.
Thrum. All right, I will now invite Bob Evans, if he is with us online, to ask his question via Zoom.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. For nearly 25 years, I've lived on the corner of Queen and Anthony Streets in Melbourne. That's about 150 metres from the Queen Victoria Market. I'm a member of the Friends of Queen Victoria Market, and over the last month, Friends of QVM have conducted a qualitative survey of visitors to both the day and night markets. Around 180 invitations were distributed, and we received about 550 responses. This strong rate of return provides clear, representative insights into how people visit and shop at the market, how they travel and park, how often they come, what they buy, and how they might respond if the open-air car park is closed. Here's a sample of the results. For the day market, 65% of visitors expressed concern or opposition to removing the open-air car park. For the night market, just over half of the respondents said they would stop or reduce their visits if parking is limited. 68% wanted to retain the open-air option. The message is clear. Lack of access to the open car park directly threatens attendance at both the night and day markets and the livelihood of traders. My question is, will you table the survey in full and place its results on the public record, include the survey findings on an agenda item of an upcoming F&C meeting, reconsider the compromise proposed by the original People's Panel, which advocated dual use of the open-air car park, confirm that building Market Square on the open-air car park will cost over $40 million? Does this mean the City of Melbourne has to meet this cost? And is it correct that a $10 million penalty applies if the Market Square project is not delivered?
All right, thank you for that question, Bob. Look, can I begin by thanking you for your... Oh, we can see you on the screen now, which is terrific.
Suddenly,
You're up on the big screen here at Town Hall.
Yes, I didn't realise I was meant to be visible, but here I am.
All the better for seeing you, Bob. So look, first of all, thanks for all the work you do with Friends of QVM, and thank you for that organisation for being such passionate supporters of the market. As we know, change is never easy, and it's certainly the case with the Queen Victoria Market Renewal Project, that there has been some ups and downs along the way, and we are better off for the input of the Friends of QVM. In relation to the survey that you have referenced, I'm not familiar with its results, but I would like to avail myself of those. So thank you for alerting me to that, and I'll certainly make arrangements to see that survey, and I'll certainly make sure that it is shared with councillors. In relation to the publication of the survey on the City of Melbourne website, I might come to you in a moment, Rick, or even Rebecca Skelton, if you want to give us a sort of organisational perspective on how we normally handle surveys like that and whether we republish them on our website. I'm not familiar or aware of us having done that in the past, but interested in what your views are there. I guess more broadly, I would say regarding the Queen Victoria Market car park, that it is the last remaining at-grade car park in the inner city, and it's 1.3 hectares. So not only is it the last at-grade car park, it's a whopping great at-grade car park. And there's a reason why it's the last car park of its scale, and that is because we, the people of Melbourne, have found much better and more valuable things to do with space like that than have it as a car park. And so what we're doing with the Queen Victoria Market Renewal Project is we are building new car parks underground. And those new car parks will deliver more parking spaces than are currently available in the precinct, but will do so underground and not obstructing the public space. And
Can I just interrupt you?
No, Bob, I'm just responding now.
Okay.
And then what we'll do with the space that's been liberated from parking is we're going to turn that into a beautiful park. We're going to turn that into a public square. And it's going to be a beautiful square that will be a prized public asset of the people of Melbourne. It'll be the Federation Square of the North. It'll have on one side the Queen Victoria Market. On the other side, it'll have what is currently the goods sheds. They will become, a beautiful strip of public spaces, of restaurants, of things that will add to the square, and it will be a great civic gathering place for the people of our city, and it will be, as I said, one of the most beautiful squares in the world. So that's the plan, which this council's voted on many times, and it's part of the agreement that we have reached with around the redevelopment of Gurrowa Place. But rest assured, Bob, that people who are visiting the market will have a place to park. In fact, they'll have more options than ever before, and they will be underground, which is a much better place for car parking spots than in a large bitumen expanse as we have at the moment. Rick, did you want to add anything in regards to the survey?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and through you. I'm not really familiar with the contents of the survey, so we would need to, understand it a little better. And, any information that we can use to improve our understanding of the space is beneficial. So, absolutely, would welcome looking at the survey and analysing the results.
Great, excellent. All right, Bob, thank you very much for your question this evening. And if you could make arrangements to send the survey results to me, and I'll make sure that they are shared here at Town Hall. All right, our next question is from Mary Masters. Is she with us? Not here. It's unfortunate. Oh, okay, we're also at time. I've been informed. I'm sorry, B, we're at time, but if there's further opportunity for questions at the end of this meeting. All right, we move on to reports from management. Does any councillor have? Does any councillor have wish to discuss the confidential status of any of the confidential items listed in the public agenda? Councillor Owen Guest.
No conflict of interest, but just flagging that I have a vested interest. I do, of course, live within the municipality of the first item coming up, the Heritage Review for East Melbourne.
Okay, thank you. I think that wouldn't qualify as a conflict of interest, but thank you for letting us know, unless your place is about to change its status. All right, well, in that case, we move on to reports from management. And I call on the Deputy Lord Mayor, Rashina Campbell, to assume the role of Chair of the meeting in relation to reports where Council exercises its responsibilities under the Planning and Environment Act 1987.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. There are 4 reports from management in this planning section of the meeting tonight. The first one is agenda item 6.1, East Melbourne Heritage Review, Amendments C484 interim and C485 permanent. Would councillors like a presentation on this item? No. In that case, I now call on Greg Bisanella on behalf of the East Melbourne Residents Group, who's requested the opportunity to address the committee in relation to this matter. Greg, I remind you to speak for no more than 3 minutes.
I will endeavour to do so. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Good evening, Lord Mayor and councillors. I'm speaking here on behalf of the East Melbourne Group, but I'm also joined here tonight by my colleagues from the East Melbourne Historical Society, so Vice President Barbara Patterson and her Secretary Sylvia Black, who are long-term East Melbourne residents, and anything that anybody knows about a parcel of land or a property in East Melbourne would generally go through both Barbara and Sylvia. We certainly would like to acknowledge and commend the significant work that has been undertaken by Lovell Chen in preparing the East Melbourne Heritage Review. In addition, we would probably be remiss in not thanking the previous council, including the Lord Mayor Sally Capp, and the drive, or perhaps we might call obsession, of Councillor Rohan Leppert for pushing through the process. And those of you that are here tonight that were part of that review, it has been a long and arduous process, but we do thank to you, Lord Mayor Rees, Deputy Lord Mayor Campbell, who was here at the time, Councillor Griffiths, Councillor Louis, Councillor Liu and Councillor Ball, who were all part of that initial decision to conduct the review. This review for us certainly confirms what residents have long known, that East Melbourne and Jolimont represent one of the Melbourne's most intact and distinguished heritage precincts of exceptional architecture, social landscape value to the city and the state. East Melbourne is not simply a collection of old houses, it is a thriving historic precinct deeply valued by residents and by all Victorians who treasure the city's heritage. We ask Council to adopt the strongest possible form of the Lovell Chen recommendations, strengthen them where necessary, and act swiftly to secure lasting protection of this irreplaceable part of Melbourne's identity. We welcome the overall review and direction of the review, and in particular, the elevation of several properties to a significant or contributory grading. We do note, however, that the existing property at 204 to 288 Albert Street, which has been through 2 previous VCAT hearings and now has planning approval for a rear commercial tower, has been downgraded to non-contributory. We're concerned that this could lead to the owners submitting an application to VCAT for amendment to the plans and involves demolition of the existing property. This, in our view, would be a travesty, and we'd urge Council to seek clarification from Lovell Chen. Finally, we urge councillors to actively engage in the current planning changes being pursued by the state government and stress the importance of managing development pressure. The Heritage Review should not sit in isolation. It must be embedded with stronger planning controls that limit excessive height, protect garden settings, and ensure any infill is subordinate in scale and design. Heritage protection is meaningless if overshadowed by planning policies that prioritise growth over character. Thank you.
Beautifully timed, Greg, and thank you so much for your submission. I now call on Chris Thrum to address the committee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Rashina Campbell, councillors, management team, men and women of Old Melbourne Town, viewers. I'll start by saying that we're on Wurundjeri country, respect to elders past and present. And we're looking at the East Melbourne heritage situation here, agenda item 6.1. Just a few points I'd like to make. I do endorse the position taken with the Parliament Gardens. I think the Parliament Gardens are beautiful, and I think you're looking at a situation where at the time the Parliament Gardens were created, the state government director of a botanist was Ferdinand Mueller. At the time too, he was also the director of the Royal Botanic Gardens. And Mueller was very amazing as a trailblazer in terms of selecting plants and trees for all the gardens around Melbourne and the Royal Botanic Gardens. Charles Joseph La Trobe selected and promoted Mueller into these very important positions, and Mueller was exceeded and excelled in those positions. So I do note that this report did not note that Mueller contributed to the Parliament Gardens, but I think we should recognise that the immense impact that Ferdinand Mueller had on all the parks and gardens of Melbourne. I sent some links. We recently celebrated the 200th birthday of Ferdinand Mueller, and at the start of the 20th century, the CSIRO would strike a medal called the Mueller Medal to honour the best scientists in Australia for every year. So hats off to Ferdinand Mueller. I'd also like to note that there's a distinct omission in this East Melbourne Heritage report. You've omitted a very important Art Deco building. It's sort of like looks like a bit of a cruise liner. It's at 12 Garden Avenue, East Melbourne. And I lived next door at 29 George Street for about over 10 years. And I walked past 12 Garden Avenue for more than 10 years, going to work at Moonlight Cinema on the production team in South Yarra. The authors of this report declare that there's no 12 Garden Avenue, there's an 8 Garden Avenue, but it's an incorrect address. And they have not included 12 Garden Avenue in this report. It's a very nonchalant, lackadaisical, almost incompetent approach to heritage. It's pathetic. It's disgraceful that they do not have 12 Garden Avenue mentioned and that they say that there's an incorrect address at number 8. I lived there for over 10 years. Number 8 does not exist. You got 2 Art Deco buildings on that site that need to be protected. Number 12 was the home of the officers of the US Army during World War II that worked under General Douglas MacArthur. Number 12 Garden Avenue 2 also had an air raid shelter at the back of it too, which was demolished in the early 21st century. There's immense historical significance to this building, and for it to be omitted and then for the excuse to be carted out that this is 8 Garden Avenue, it's incorrect address and there's no documentation of 12 Garden Avenue, you should need to reassess that situation. Thank you for the report, and I appreciate a lot of work was done, but I have to highlight you've got to protect 12 and number 6 Garden Avenue.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for that illuminating submission. I am going to ask a question of management in light of it. I think I'm addressing my question to Joe Cannington. Joe, you've heard Chris's submission about 12 Garden Avenue. Could we please have management's response to that issue?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you so much, Chris, for raising that issue. We just wanted to clarify that the amendments going through include a range of different edits to maps and addresses, and the issue that Chris has raised is actually been captured. Page 19 of the report refers to 6 to 12 Garden Avenue. What we're proposing is that we remove the reference to number 8 because number 8 doesn't exist. So we absolutely concur that what Chris is saying is correct, and we do believe that we've picked that up, but it might just be in some of the detail. I'm happy to talk to Chris about that offline just to make sure that that's his understanding as well.
Thank you so much, Joe. And of course, they are beautiful Art Deco apartments. We appreciate you providing that response. I am now going to ask for a motion to be put on the screen for this agenda item. Thank you. I am going to move that motion and I'm looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Guest. And I'm now going to speak to this motion. The purpose of the motion before us tonight is to seek approval to commence the interim and permanent heritage controls to implement the findings of the East Melbourne Heritage Review. You've heard it put so well by our submitters about how important East Melbourne, and in particular protecting the character and identity of East Melbourne is to protecting the character and identity of Melbourne. And I'm very grateful to our submitters. Chris, thank you so much for raising the issues in relation to Garden Avenue, but thank you also for pointing out the recognition of Parliament Gardens in this review and for that very illuminating recognition of the horticultural history of Parliament Gardens. I also wanted to acknowledge the built form in Parliament Gardens, of course, the beloved Coles Fountain that is there. And Greg, thank you to you and all the work that the East Melbourne Residents Group does. We are very, very grateful and a better council for it. Now, this review before us tonight ensures that the heritage protections in East Melbourne are both up to date, but also that they reflect the full history of East Melbourne, from its earliest Victorian architecture through significant interwar and post-war and post-modern buildings. It's worth reflecting on the fact that the last time we did a comprehensive study of East Melbourne was 1983, almost half a century ago. And so this review marks a very significant step forward in strengthening the heritage protection for East Melbourne. And I would like to thank Rohan Leppert, a councillor in the previous term of this council, who was such a leader in relation to commencing this work. This study has been undertaken by Lovell Chen, and the review identifies 9 new individual heritage places, new and updated statements of significance for key buildings and precincts, and interim controls for 21 unprotected properties to ensure they are safeguarded while permanent controls are progressed. These updates are timely, but they are also necessary. It's not enough for us just to recognise the glorious Victorian heritage of East Melbourne, but of course the 20th century design that has also shaped that suburb's character. Tonight, the Future Melbourne Committee is being asked to note the review, to request the Minister for Planning to prepare and approve the Amendment C484, to seek authorisation to prepare and exhibit Amendment C485, the permanent controls, and to authorise the General Manager of Strategy, Planning and Climate Change to make adjustments as necessary prior to exhibition. I hope you will all take a moment to make your way through this review if you haven't already. It paints a striking picture of the marvellous architectural contribution that East Melbourne has played in the City of Melbourne. We've taken you to a couple of examples tonight, from the wonderful Art Deco apartments to the striking Coles Fountain in Parliament Gardens. To not provide such significant structures with protection would not recognise the true and outstanding history of our beloved East Melbourne. And together, the actions proposed in this item tonight will provide both immediate protection for those identified sites and begin the process for permanent heritage listing through public exhibition. Finally, I have to say some thank yous to the people who've done the real work on this, to Joe Cannington, to Catherine Smart, and to the broader city strategy and heritage planning teams. Thank you for your detailed, careful and collaborative work. This review is a major achievement. It reinforces this council's commitment to celebrating Melbourne's heritage, both the old and the newer, and ensuring, in particular, that East Melbourne's distinctive identity is protected for generations to come. I commend it to my councillor colleagues, and I hand over to you, Councillor Guest, as seconder.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you, Greg, as well, for your comments. Thank you, neighbour. Thank you, Chris. I won't take too long, but we're very lucky living in East Melbourne, or Jolimont, as some of us still remember it. We're lucky to have Yarra Park. We're lucky to have the Fitzroy Gardens. We're lucky to have the Treasury Gardens. We're lucky to have many houses and apartments that have stood the test of time. There was a building surge in the 1860s, and there's been a few since then as well, and all have made a contribution to our lovely suburb. It's great to see. I think 933 pages is in this document, but going through it, I think we can say that it is protecting our environment, protecting our suburb, which I can see Greg nodding. That is actually what we want deep down. We want to see that our great parks are preserved for all of us to use. Some wonderful houses. This is very good. I do commend it. I could make some comments now, if you like. There's some strange part of this document that's been redacted. It's a shame. I wish it hadn't been. It lessens the document and takes from it. Transparency is important. Aside from that, though, I think we've landed in a good place. We all want to see our East Melbourne preserved in the way that we love it and available for everybody in the future. So aside from the transparency issue, I think we've landed in a great spot. Thank you, everyone involved.
Thank you, Councillor Guest. Are there any other speakers to this motion? Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor and Leader of Planning. It would be remiss of me if I didn't make some remarks. In fact, I couldn't resist anyway. So can I also begin by... I should begin by saying former Councillor Rohan Leppert did a power of work in this area, and I was honoured, indeed privileged, to be his deputy in the heritage portfolio for 2 terms here at Council. And so, like many in this room, I've been on the journey around the East Melbourne Heritage Review, which we got there in the end. There was often a bit of debate about in what order we would do the various heritage reviews across Melbourne, and we did get there with East Melbourne, which is great to see. Can I also, like the Deputy Lord Mayor has done, add my vote of thanks to Joe Cannington, Catherine Smart, Evan Council, Lovell Chen, also Andrew Long and Associates, and all the people that have been involved in producing this heritage review. Can I acknowledge the mighty East Melbourne Group, East Melbourne Heritage Society, and the active citizenry we have in East Melbourne who have played a critical role in this work and this project going forward, because we still do have a way to go. And it is very, very important work. And I say this noting that we have a number of representatives from different inner city resident associations here this evening, but East Melbourne would have to be the most extraordinary intact example of Victorian era terraces, Edwardian streetscapes, mixed in with beautiful parks, gardens, as well as some modern and indeed postmodern architecture. There is no example, I think, anywhere in the world of that amount of heritage residential architecture as we see in East Melbourne. It is truly extraordinary, and that's why it's so important that we ensure we have fit for purpose and up-to-date controls in place to protect East Melbourne. And that's exactly what we're doing with this report. I am confident that we will hear from the Minister in a timely, indeed speedy fashion to get those interim controls and protections in place, and that we can proceed with exhibiting so that we can get on and make those protections permanent. This is sort of one of those things that really does distinguish Melbourne from other cities around the world, these beautiful heritage suburbs that we have. And so we have a duty here at the city to get it right, and we're doing just that with this work. So I'm looking forward to voting for this in a few short moments and seeing this important work go forward. Thanks once again to one and all who have been involved in this joint project that we are on.
Thank you so much, Lord Mayor, and thank you also for your work as the deputy in that portfolio. It's great to see this almost final piece of work as part of that much larger package coming to life now. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? No. Then I'll put the motion to the vote. Could all those in favour please raise your hands? Councillor Scott. Councillor Scott.
Looks like he's frozen.
Oh. Oh, Councillor Scott.
I think my camera is frozen, but my hand is up. I'm voting yes.
All right, Councillor Scott, I've got the nod from governance that that is acceptable, so that has passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We now move to agenda item 6.2, Ministerial Planning Referral TPM 2025-2043 Mackenzie Street, Melbourne. I am going to request a presentation on this item, and I call Nick McLennan, Manager of Statutory Planning, to make a brief presentation. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and good evening, Lord Mayor and councillors. Planning permit application PA 2503-770 at 43 Mackenzie Street has been lodged with the Minister for Planning and has been accepted under the State Development Facilitation Program stream, as it has been deemed to meet the requirements as a project which will contribute to the provision of affordable housing to meet existing and future needs of Victoria. Next slide, please. The subject site is 918 square metres in area and is located on the south side of Mackenzie Street in the northern end of the city, as can be seen on the slide. Grange Place runs along the eastern boundary and Mackenzie Tower is located across the lane. To the west is the former police headquarters, which is predominantly residential and is a significant heritage building on the Victorian Heritage Register. This site wraps around the rear of the subject site and includes 68 Latrobe Street, which is a 27-storey residential tower. The site also has a rear interface with 58 Latrobe Street, which benefits from a permit for a 40-storey mixed-use development. These interfaces can be seen on the right-hand isometric image on the screen, noting that within these buildings are dwellings which have sole outlook onto the subject site. It is important to note that the site is in close proximity to the Royal Exhibition Building and Carlton Gardens and is within the World Heritage Environs area. And as such, there are significant heritage obligations associated with any new development on the site. Next slide, please. The proposal before you tonight seeks approval for demolition of the existing building and the construction of a 32-storey, 113-metre tall building for purpose-built student accommodation comprising 675 beds in 538 rooms. On your screen is a typical floor plate which includes accommodation in two typologies, studio and 2, 3 and 5 bed cluster rooms with shared living and kitchenette. The proposal also includes 1,718 square metres of communal areas, which equate to 2.5 square metres per student, as well as 202 bicycle parking spaces. Further, the application proposes a 3% cash contribution of the estimated cost of the proposal for the provision of affordable housing. Next slide, please. As can be seen on the screen, the tower does not provide for a typical podium tower arrangement with a setback provided above the ground floor to the west and above the third level to the south, but otherwise extends straight up. To the west, the tower form is set back 4.5 metres from the tidal boundary. To the south, the building is set back 4.5 metres from the centre of Grange Place. And to the rear, the tower is set back 3 metres. As outlined in the recommendation, these setbacks are not considered sufficient enough in the context of the site and result in adverse impacts to neighbouring properties. Further, there are negative impacts on daylight access to the development and adjoining residential properties, as well as flow-on environmentally sustainable design concerns which arise. Next slide, please. As previously mentioned, the site sits within the World Heritage Environs area. Design and Development Overlay 4 seeks to protect this area and ensure development does not detract from or intrude on the prominence and visibility of the Royal Exhibition Building and Carlton Gardens. In order to do this, mandatory height controls typically apply. Next slide, please. Specifically, within DDO 4, the subject site is provided with a mandatory maximum height limit of 103 metres, which can be seen on the screen. As proposed, the development seeks to exceed this height by 9.85 metres. Heritage Victoria has formally objected to the proposal and council officers share these concerns. Next slide, please. The impressions on the screen depict the proposed development as viewed from important viewpoints at the Royal Exhibition Building and Carlton Gardens. The controls seek to protect these views and vistas, and this is not currently being achieved. And the final slide, please. This final slide just presents visual renders and impressions of the proposed tower as viewed from surrounding vantage points, highlighting the form, height and materiality of the tower. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Nick. Just before you sit down,
Yes.
Councillor Lei-Lu.
Just wanted to confirm the 3% cash contribution is not to us, but is actually to the state government.
Yes, councillor, to the state government.
Yep.
Did any other councillors have questions of Nick? No? Thank you so much. Oh, yes, Councillor Rouse.
Given the picture from the Royal Exhibition Building, for those of you in the audience or perhaps listening at home who aren't across the planning scheme, could you explain in simple terms why, given that the building is approximately 3/4 hidden behind another building, how did that first building come to be okay and acceptable, given that it's predominantly hiding another building?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. The controls were only recently introduced this year, so those buildings were previously built before the controls were in existence.
Brilliant. Excellent answer. Thank you.
Any other questions of Nick? No, you can now safely resume your seat. Thank you so much for that presentation. I now call on Michael Henderson from Contour Planning and Advisory, who's requested the opportunity to address the committee in relation to this matter. Michael, I remind you to speak for no more than 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you for the presentation from council officers. My name's Michael Henderson and I'm a Director of Contour Consultants and I'm a town planner. Tonight I'm representing the client being Centurion Australia Investments. Centurion, as a client, they've had a presence in Australia for 14 years in both Adelaide and Melbourne. They have a portfolio across Australia of 1,000 student accommodation beds. Globally, their portfolio is 70,000 beds, comprising both student accommodation and key worker accommodation. They currently have 5 new buildings in either construction or awaiting planning approval in New South Wales, Victoria and Western Australia, and they're actively seeking more opportunities. They have an existing project within the City of Melbourne currently under construction at Flemington Road, North Melbourne, which provides for 642 beds. Needless to say, Centurion are a global student accommodation provider. As councillors will be aware, this application has been made via the Development Facilitation Program, part of which is the commitment to affordable housing. In the instance of this project, and relevant to the question from councillors, the estimated cost of the development would result in an affordable contribution of circa $3.84 million being made on behalf of our client. The pre-application process for this project commenced in late 2024. At that point in time, there was no height control on the subject site. There was a draft control, which we acknowledge, which contemplated a mandatory building height of 113 metres. As you've been made aware by the council officer, a planning control was introduced on April of this year, the Thursday before Easter. And that changed, or that introduced planning control provided a mandatory height control of 103 metres. For 6 months, our client did pre-application process with the state government, council and the OVGA, none of which were aware that this mandatory height control was going to come in a different form to what that draft control contemplated. To be clear, that was a 10 metre height reduction as was shown on that drawing, well, on the screen earlier. The key point in terms of the visual impact assessment is what can you see from the various vistas. As was on the screen, the project team did visual impact analysis, which involved our client engaging a surveyor to go on site and to model the exhibition building from various vistas around. What you could see was, we're not denying you cannot see the proposed building, but what can you see, we would say is marginal, and we would say it is part of an already obstructive skyline. We were not dealing with a pristine skyline where the subject site is located. And that's consistent with one of the questions from the councillors about there are a range of buildings with approvals proximate to the site that either exceed the height of the subject site. Conscious of timing, councillors, I'll conclude by saying should a permit be issued, the proposal proposes a 2-year construction program with ambitions to open 1 January 2028. 300 jobs will be created during construction and will support 50 jobs from an ongoing operation, 675 beds for students. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you very much, Michael. Just before you resume your seat, I had a few questions and other councillors may as well. Could I first understand, noting the history of DD04, does the applicant have any willingness to consider reducing the overall height of the building?
At this stage, the answer is no, to be frank. And this is something where we're actively discussing with DTP, and we welcome further discussions with the City of Melbourne in relation to the building height.
Thank you. Does the applicant have any willingness to increase the setbacks or tower separation to reduce the visual bulk and to improve daylight access for neighbouring properties?
We're of a view that that is a robbing Peter to pay Paul scenario, Councillor. Firstly, the daylight modelling that we've undertaken as a project team establishes negligible impact if we were to shift the tower, call it to the west or to the north on our adjoining properties. Secondly, if we were to shift the tower, we're actually creating possibly an adverse heritage impact on the police headquarters building.
And there's no willingness to increase the setbacks.
Correct, Councillor.
Okay. Thank you. I note that there's limited communal space within the building. This is student accommodation. There's approximately, I think, 2.5 square metres per student, which doesn't meet sort of our general planning expectations around livability and amenity in student accommodation in the City of Melbourne. Does the applicant have any willingness to provide additional communal or shared facilities?
Thank you, Councillor. It's a good point. So as a starting point for ease of math, it's a 3.5 square metre requirement per student. The application is proposing 2.5 square metres per student. The benchmarking we've done across similar projects is we're around the mark of similar projects within the City of Melbourne. But in the instance of this project, Councillor, what's important to note is our internal contribution is of a high quality amenity outcome. And on a tight site, as we saw on the aerial image, there's only so much external or communal amenity that can be provided. So to your question, Councillor, can we provide more communal open space? We're actively exploring that.
Thank you very much for that. I understand the proposal doesn't currently have Green Star certification. Is there any willingness on the part of the applicant to achieve, for example, a minimum of five-star Green Star design, an as-built certification, or taking any other steps? I appreciate that Amendment C376 is currently with the Minister, but any other steps that would be consistent with that planning scheme amendment?
Sure. So just in the last 2 days, we've received the latest tranche of comments from Council's ESD department. They've been forwarded through via DTP. We're working through that as a project team to see how we, provide a response to the ESD comments of Council. To your question about can we commit to a Green Star certification, that's with the project team to resolve, Council.
Thank you. And my final question is in relation to the architectural detailing of the building. Is there any willingness on the part of the applicant to refine that to improve integration with the surrounding heritage and urban fabric?
Probably need to have a better understanding of what Council's ambitions are behind that question, Councillor. For what it's worth, we provide a highly activated edge around the perimeter of the building. We have an accompanying heritage impact statement that says we provide an appropriate response to the adjoining heritage building, being the police headquarters. If I can take on notice, or if you can come back to me specific about what you're seeking through that question, I can provide the response.
Thank you so much. They are my questions for you, Michael, but I wonder if any other councillors had any questions before you take your seat. Councillor Leiloo. Okay. All right. Well, I think you can safely sit down. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you, councillors.
I also had a question for management, so we might ask you, Nick, to return to the lectern. We've heard from Michael Henderson about the timing of the introduction of DD04 and the timing of this application. Could we please have management's view on the need for compliance with the height limits in light of that chronology of events?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Officers are of the opinion that regardless of any previous discussions with previous controls, that the current controls require a mandatory height of 103 metres and that should be met. We don't see there any reason for it not to be.
Okay, thank you, Nick. I think Councillor Leiloo had a question.
Sorry, but the applicant have stated that they started before knowing that this control was going to come in. So without them knowing it, and then yet we are saying, you know, when they actually started it, they're playing by this set of rules, but now the rules has changed, which to the point they're not actually aware of. are you saying that we actually, no matter what, even if we don't know what the rules are going to be in the future, we must adhere to that? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, so the lodgement of the application was done once the controls were in place, meaning that the application would be prohibited. Hence, the application was needed to be made to the state government under the DFP program.
Oh, right, okay. Sorry,
Yeah,
I got the criminal right.
Yeah.
Right, okay. My apologies.
Thank you so much, Nick. Were there any other questions? No, thank you. I now call on B. McNicholas, who's requested the opportunity to address the committee. B, if you could make your way to the lectern, and I remind you to speak for no more than 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Dear Lord Mayor Nicholas Reeves, Deputy Lord Mayor Rashina Campbell, all of our fine councillors, CEO Alison Layton, and her team, which is led today for this matter by the General Manager for Strategy Planning and Climate Change, Evan Council, and for Nick, who just presented, and that was excellent, and for the Senior Urban Planner and person, was that Nina? Anyway, who's not here, I don't think, but excellent work. We strongly support the recommendation of officers and management on this matter as outlined, and their quote in the documents that the future Melbourne Committee requests that the future Melbourne Committee resolves to allow the Minister for Planning that Melbourne City Council does not support the permit application due to unacceptable variations to the requirements of the Melbourne Planning Scheme, including building height and form, shared facilities and communal areas, environmental sustainable design, outcomes and adverse impacts and effects on the Royal Exhibition Building and neighbouring properties. At the same time, Heritage Victoria has formally objected to the application, that's noted in the report, and that includes the following comment from Stephen Avery, the Executive Director, from that report. We do not support the application as it fails to comply with DDO4 requirements. It proposes a building height which exceeds the mandatory height limits. It does not adhere to the DDO4 decision guidelines that must be considered for all World Heritage Environment Area permit applications, and it does not align with DDO4 design outcome. So one of my questions here today is why, therefore, is this agenda item here? That's, I think, the main issue that I'd like to consider with you today. Why has this been allowed to proceed to this level with this application? Why wasn't it rejected immediately as it fails to comply with mandatory requirements that the Planning Minister, Victorian Planning Minister, approved on the 17th of April? But it sat on her desk, I must say, for at least 18 months, if not 2 years before then. And we spent years submitting on this, and there were interim reports. So it wasn't a secret in what direction it was heading, and anyone could attend the public hearing on that matter. So it shouldn't have been a surprise as well. But this is Melbourne's only UNESCO World Heritage listed place. It is iconic, the Royal Exhibition Building, Carlton Gardens, a place of outstanding world cultural heritage significance. I'm a strategic cultural heritage management professor, and I run several community organisations for heritage and environment, and we were just shocked to see that this was submitted. And given that part of the reason for the mandatory limits for height, for example, was so that this sort of thing would not occur.
B, your time has expired. I'll just ask you to conclude your remarks.
Thank you. I did a more detailed submission, which you all have, so I have some questions in that, and I've recommended that the City of Melbourne adds some further strong points in the recommendations, and I've alerted people to some points that could be added, and I urge you to do that because I think we need to look after this place, which contributes so much to Australia and the world and Melbourne, and it brings you economic benefits and cultural heritage tourism. We need to look after it, and we're obliged to.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you also for your written submission. We have one more submitter, Stan Capp. Is Dr. Stan Capp online?
Yes, he is.
Ah, wonderful. We can hear you, Stan. We're just waiting to see you.
Well, I need some help in doing that then from your team, and I have that now. So
yes, wonderful. We got a glimpse. I'm sure you'll come back. There we are. We've got you, Stan, and we can hear you. Thank you so much. I'll hand over to you to address the committee for no more than 3 minutes.
thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and to you, Lord Mayor, and other councillors and staff. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. My submission is very simple. It starts with a question. Why is the City of Melbourne being asked to consider this matter when it is patently obvious that the application is in breach of the very World Heritage laws that were approved by the state government, as we heard before, on the 17th of April 2025? The response from the City of Melbourne officers is measured, professional, and I strongly support its recommendations. However, I do propose that the Future Melbourne Committee makes a clear and unequivocal statement that the principle of strict compliance with the World Heritage Environs Area is immutable and not a matter for negotiation. The future of our World Heritage status depends upon it. In other environments, the Minister accepting an application under the State's Development Facilitation Program would be unremarkable due to its contribution to the provision of affordable housing, one which many of us support. That process, however, has its own challenges, and it's not the time to discuss those, but I certainly think due weight should be given to the respective planning schemes, and the elimination of resident and community input is a retrograde step. However, in this proposal, the appropriate response surely would have been to refer the applicant to the new laws pertaining to the World Heritage Environs Area and the relevant requirements of the Melbourne Planning Scheme, including building height, form, shared facilities, community areas, plus the required environmental sustainable design outcomes. The application of World Heritage laws and potential adverse effects for the Royal Exhibition Building and Carlton Gardens should have been advised as matters that were not negotiable. And the questions, Deputy Lord Mayor, that you raised and responded to by the council officers, I think, go to that point precisely. There will be advice to the Future Melbourne Committee from multiple sources that detail the protracted and challenging process that ultimately resulted in the acceptance of the World Heritage Environs Area, and B has spoken to that tortuous process briefly. This was not a hasty process. I reiterate the comment from Margaret O'Brien, who, a stalwart leader of the Friends of the Royal Exhibition Buildings and Carlton Gardens, that, quote, messages must be sent that the World Heritage laws are not for turning. Deputy Lord Mayor, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Stan. That concludes our submissions for this item. I am going to ask for a motion to be put on the screen, and I am going to ask Council Business if they have an alternate motion that they can put on the screen. Thank you, and I'll just ask you to scroll through that for the benefit of those here tonight or following along at home. I am going, if you can keep going, thank you. Thank you. I am going to move this item, and I'm looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Lei Lu. I will now speak to the item. The planning application before us relates to 43 Mackenzie Street, Melbourne, and seeks approval for the demolition of the existing building and construction of a 32-storey student accommodation tower, comprising 675 beds across 538 rooms and an estimated development cost of $139 million. The applicant is Centurion Australia Investments Proprietary Limited, the owner is Mackenzie Square Developments, and the architect is Metier 3 Proprietary Limited. Importantly, the Minister for Planning is the responsible decision maker in respect to this application. The Department of Transport and Planning, on behalf of the Minister, has referred this application to the City of Melbourne for comment. I know a number of our submitters tonight have asked why this matter is before the committee, and it is for that reason. I want to take this opportunity to thank our submitters tonight, both those in the room, those who've provided written submissions. I know, Trish, you have provided a written submission. I'm grateful to also see you here tonight, and all our other written submitters. I know councillors are very appreciative of having the benefit of your comments. Now, the Minister's accepted this application under the State Development Facilitation Program, as it meets that program's requirements for projects that contribute to the provision of affordable housing to meet existing and future needs of Victoria. And you've heard that there is a proposed 3% cash contribution in respect of this application. It is understood by the City of Melbourne that the Minister will make a decision on this application imminently, which has provided limited time for our officers to provide a comprehensive assessment. Having said that, I'm very grateful for them, in the time available to them, for providing their considered opinion on the alignment of this application to the planning scheme. And in particular, I'd like to thank Nick McLennan, who you've heard from tonight, the Acting Head of Statutory Planning, Julian Edwards, the Director of Building and Planning, and to their teams. It's worth taking a moment to talk through some of the chronology of this application. On the 29th of September 2025, DTP placed the application on public notice for 14 days. At the time that management wrote the report that was released last Thursday, DTP had advised that 152 objections had been received, including a formal objection from Heritage Victoria. Now, it is the responsibility of DTP to consider those objections. The City of Melbourne has no referral status or appeal rights in relation to this application, but that is a significant number of objections. This site, as you've heard, is located within the World Heritage Environs area. It protects the beloved Royal Exhibition Building and Central Gardens, one of Melbourne's most significant heritage places. You've also heard tonight that the proposed height of 113 metres exceeds the mandatory control of DD04 by almost 10 metres. And the impact of that is visual intrusion into protected view corridors and diminished prominence of the Royal Exhibition buildings. That is a concern supported by Heritage Victoria in its formal objection to the proposal. Heritage Victoria also cites unacceptable impacts on the World Heritage Environs area and the surrounding heritage context. Further, the tower's scale and the limited setbacks are inconsistent with the intended mid-rise character of this precinct. It creates dominant visual bulk, overshadowing and amenity impacts to adjoining sites. And then internally, the proposal offers very limited communal space. You've heard tonight, only 2.5 square metres per student. We are so proud in the City of Melbourne of the student experience we provide. It is very important to Melbourne's identity. And this proposal does not meet our planning expectations for student accommodation. It doesn't provide the livability and amenity that we know our students deserve. The proposal also lacks Green Star certification. It falls short of best practice ESD outcomes. It's also contrary to Council's objectives in this respect. If the City of Melbourne was the responsible authority, our officers would seek to address some of these concerns. In particular, they would seek key permit and design conditions, I am advised. For example, they would seek to reduce the overall building height, to preserve the World Heritage Environs area, to make sure compliance with DD04 is achieved before any permit could issue. They would seek to increase setbacks and tower separation to reduce visual bulk. They would seek the provision of additional communal and shared facilities to improve the experience of those students in this accommodation. They would seek for a minimum 5-star design and as-built certification to be achieved, and also compliance with Amendment C376. The sustainable building design would obviously be a preferred outcome. And they would also seek to refine the architectural detailing and materiality. Now, I want to thank Michael Henderson of Contour for your very helpful submission and for informing us that the applicant is currently considering some of these matters and is in discussions with the department about those matters. But the decision before Council tonight is the application in its current form. We are pleased, or at least I am, to hear that those discussions are occurring. But the decision we must make is in respect of the application before us. Council recognises the importance of high-quality, well-located student accommodation. We are such a proud student city. But that objective must be balanced with heritage protection, design excellence and sustainability outcomes. And in this instance, the scale, form and design quality of the proposal are inconsistent with the Melbourne Planning Scheme and the World Heritage Environs in this context. of the beloved Royal Exhibition Building and the Carlton Gardens. So tonight I am moving an alternate motion which recognises the decision will ultimately be for the Minister for Planning, but to advise her that the City of Melbourne does not support the permit issuing on the application as before us because it's inconsistent with the objectives and requirements of the Melbourne Planning Scheme. This alternate motion goes on to identify some of the ways in which it is consistent, but that is not the full list. That full list can be found by a careful review of management's report, and I'm grateful for them for their work. But it does go on to say that if the Minister does decide that a permit should issue, in the City of Melbourne's view, that must not occur until these issues are addressed. The current proposal is not compliant with DD04. It will have significant amenity impacts, and it is not consistent with the experience students in Melbourne, in Victoria, should have. For those reasons, I commend this motion to you, to my councillor colleagues, and over to you, Councillor Leilu, as seconder.
Thank you. I think you've covered a lot of it, so I'll just pretty briefly very much say, look, I'm happy to support the amendments. I consider myself probably very pro-development. I'm one of those who will try to find, wherever possible, to try and make things, I guess, work and come together. And I get the fact that, the state government has been saying, we want more international students, we want more, and therefore I think you probably saw that and would go, well, look, if you need more international students and you don't want to blame international students for the housing crisis, therefore, we are providing service. And I get that and everything. But even going through all of that, it's just hard for me to even just go through a lot of those issues. And I get, the steps and the things that you've put through. But it's probably a line too far on some of the things, and I do encourage yourself and also ask the owners to work not only with us but also with state government. I do hope that the state government, I do see the 3% cash contribution, and I know the state is absolutely broke, and so maybe they will see that, and that's a nice big carrot in entangling, but. What price is, the UNESCO park? What price are we going to put on our things? Sure, you could, we pay more in interest than that amount put forward, and so 4 million is not really going to help the bottom line, right? So I do hope that the state government does not see this as a cash grab. I do hope that they do work with you and to come up with sensible solutions. I do think that there is need for student accommodations, but not in this way. And I do hope that, I do hope you see that our team and also some of us are willing to work with you. And also there are a lot of community who's also willing to work with you. They've made a very, very strong response. Ultimately, we are abided by legislation. Ultimately, no one can really go and talk to the minister, but they can talk to us because we are the local government, and also the fact that we allow forums like this where people can actually speak up. And I think you would have saw that. And so this is a referral to us. We have put forward, but I do hope that we can come to work together because at the end of the day, we do want to see more developments in the city, but not this way. And I hope that this is something that you can take back and work on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Leilu. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Camillo.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I think we need to remember that the Carlton Gardens in the exhibition building was up to 2019 the only Melbourne's World Heritage Site. So we need to remember that. Now we have another one, but is it important to protect the area and the surrounds area? And that's why tonight I'm fully support what the Deputy Lord Mayor is putting there in this motion that's put in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Are there any other speakers to this motion? Lord Mayor.
Thanks, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you to you and Councillor Leilu's work on this application as well as the planning team. I think it's fair to say that at the City of Melbourne, we do like to see projects go ahead. We recognise that we are a growing city. We're also, not opposed to a developer's profit, but ultimately we put the community benefit first. And I think what we see with this project is a proposal that just falls short on too many counts. I think the Deputy Lord Mayor asked some very good questions relating to excessive building height, inappropriate built form, unacceptable adverse impact in a heritage precinct, insufficient provision of shared facilities and communal spaces for people who will live in the building, and inadequate environmental sustainable design. That is quite a catalogue of concerns. And in terms of the response that we heard here this evening, and I understand, you're acting within the parameters of what you've been advised, we heard we will have a look at it, or versions of that response. And unfortunately, that's not good enough. We need to hear stronger commitment to meeting the concerns that were raised, and without, appropriate responses and, frankly, changes to what's before us, this is something that can't be supported by council. And so I will be supporting the motion this evening and not supporting this development proposal.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Are there any other speakers to the motion? No. In that case, I will put the motion to the vote. Could all those in favour of the motion please raise your hands? Councillor Scott, we can see you. Yes, wonderful. That has passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We now move to agenda item 6.3. Ministerial Planning Referral, TPM 2025-1, 141 to 151 Sturt Street, Southbank. Would councillors like a presentation on this agenda item? No. In that case, I call on Sarah Thomas. Sarah, you? Yes. Great to see you, from Urban Planning Collective, who's requested the opportunity to address the committee in relation to this matter. Sarah, I remind you to please limit your submission to no more than 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm Sarah Thomas, Associate Director from the Urban Planning Collective, and we're representing the permit applicant in this matter. Of course, it's a referral from the Minister for Planning. Hopefully this is straightforward this evening. We have circulated written submissions as well. Just it's a matter of detail that we're really here tonight to address the committee. You would have seen that the planning officers have recommended support of our client's application, which we note includes the delivery of 180 new dwellings in the Melbourne Arts Precinct down on Sturt Street. Now, our client's very aware of the significance of this space being in the Capital City Zone 7 and has undertaken a number of pre-application meetings with the department, council officers, and also with Creative Victoria. And I think that is represented in the favourable outcome from council officers and also the general support from Creative Victoria, subject to conditions. Now, I will talk to a matter of detail that clearly our client is supportive and very grateful for the detailed work and report that has been prepared by the council officers. But there are a number of details in the conditions that we did want to present or raise with the committee tonight, just in terms of making the ongoing management of any planning permit perhaps easier down the track. And this was detailed in our written submissions as well. So our client would request that the recommendation for condition 10E be revised from evidence demonstrating that the development can achieve the requirements of a reduction of 20% carbon emissions be revised to preliminary calculations, just in terms of making the method of demonstration clear. I'll just touch on as well, there is condition 10H that was recommended, and that was for a signed maintenance contract of at least 5 years for the proprietary device in the SMP. The reason our client just is concerned about this is that under the Owners Corporation Act, you can only lock in up to 3 years. So again, it's a matter of detail, which we've put towards the committee. There was another item in terms of replacing artificial grass with pre-grown turf. There is a section of artificial grass and also pre-grown turf, but only where required along the southern edge of the tower is artificial grass proposed, just in terms of maintenance and ensuring that it provides a high level of amenity for residents. Now, there are other conditions as well. The loading management plan, and then also a Section 173 agreement we request prior to occupation, and also matter of detail with some of the engineering conditions, so we're aware of what the actual obligations are of those conditions as well. But thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission, Sarah. I might ask, is it Julian Edwards in this instance? A couple of questions arising out of your submission, Sarah. So you have a question for Sarah. Sarah, before you take your seat, before Julian comes to the lectern, Councillor Leilu had a question for you.
Thank you. Really appreciate the creative space and everything. Just wondering, have you already found a partner to, I guess, work with? Is that with Creative Victoria, or so? For example, we also have Creative Melbourne that we also have something that we try to work with people around creative spaces within Melbourne, and just wondering, has that already been made a decision, and is it with Creative Victoria or is someone else or something?
Our client has already reached out to an organisation who has shown interest in the full space, but I'm not sure if it's finalised. We do have our client here. It's more of an interest, but I'm sure they would be open to further discussions.
That'd be great to hear.
It can actually be quite challenging to try and lock down someone, particularly at this early planning stage. So I'm sure they'll be happy to have those conversations.
Great, awesome.
Well.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Councillor Leilu, the head of our Creative Melbourne portfolio, for that question. Julian, I might ask you a few questions, if that's possible, just in relation to the submission we've heard from Sarah, and also, of course, the written submission in respect of the conditions, in particular the three that were raised, the 20% carbon reduction, whether that should be evidence or something else, the turf, and also the compliance with the Owners Corp Act, should it be 5 years or some lesser amount to be consistent with the Act. I was wondering if management had a view on any of those changes or anything else in the written submissions.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and through you. What we've done in this instance, noting that we're not the decision maker here at Council, is provide our standard conditions, including advice from our internal referral experts and the like. We would say that the suggested changes are probably best directed towards the Minister as the decision maker. And as a standard for us, we don't see the need to make any adjustments. They are largely administrative in nature, the suggestions for tweaking and changing, other than a couple that seek to delete some of our standard civil engineering related conditions.
Thank you, Julian. Nothing else from me. Councillor Camillo, though, has a question.
Thank you. In one of the reports that a submission made by the South Bank Residents Association brought my attention. That's
I think Tony's registered to speak next, if it's helpful to do contextualised questions afterwards. Sorry to interrupt.
Just a question for the management, maybe he can answer.
Go ahead, Councillor Camillo, while Julian's at the lectern.
Okay, sorry.
All right. Well, as Chair, I'm happy to permit you to ask your question now, Councillor Camillo.
Okay.
Councillors can ask a question at any time, but do you have a preference? Would you like to ask it now or after?
And there's a simple question is about, like, in the area, in the preference for buildings in there is 40 metres. This building 66.23 metres. The adjacent building, one in the south, is 59, the other one 62. My question is, why council didn't make a recommending that should be one level lower, because otherwise we're going to be open a precedent. So every new building that comes, go one level up, and then we just never get stopped. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Camillo, and through you, Chair. The planning controls in this location are, I guess, described in a way where there are some preferred controls, there are some mandatory controls, and then there are alternative design solutions to achieve things. And they all need to be read concurrently and together. So where something's mandatory, it needs to be complied with. Where something's preferred, which in this case the maximum overall height is preferred, it can be varied provided the design objectives are met. And so what's been put to the Minister and referred on to Council is a project that reduces the street wall height, so creates some variation and differentiation along the street so you don't get continuous built form, but has gone slightly higher in terms of the tower. And that is something that is allowed to be submitted. It's then a decision for the Minister whether that's appropriate. And in this case, our officers are of the view that it is an appropriate outcome for this site.
Thank you, John. Yes, Councillor Camille's got another question.
So when enough is enough? Because when councils got to decide to enough's enough, because you just got to keep on going up and up and up. You have 59, 62 and goes low. So I just want to alert the council at some stage. We need to. Thank you.
Is that a question? No, it's a statement. Okay. Thank you, Julian. Unless there are any other questions from councillors? No. Thank you. In that case, I now call on Tony Penner from the South Bank Residents Association. Tony, I know you don't need reminding, but please speak for no more than 3 minutes.
Well, I'll have to change a bit now because we've got an answer there, so I'll reword it now. It's great. There are a number of positive features to this design. The tower setbacks will reduce the scene of encroachment at street level. The walkway from Sturt Street to Dodd Street will be a valuable asset. The facilities for residents are comprehensive. The creative art space of 734 square metres gives considerable scope for diverse activities. The planning officer's report states that the applicant has indicated they have engaged with the creative sector and identified a potential occupier for the space. Music studio, apparently, from what we've just heard as well. We would certainly encourage council to try and get more details about that. What we are hearing from other developers in that area, Hayball, particularly the next door, the neighbouring site, is they are finding it near on impossible to find a tenant for their creative spaces. So it's interesting that now we've got a new development and all of a sudden everything's fine. I'm a bit sceptical as to that relationship that they claim that they've got. The proposal has a maximum overall height of 66.2 metres. We've had the answer to that. The point that we were trying to make here is they've said that the building to the south is 17 metres, the building to the north is 18 metres, and they're approving 20 metres for this one. The reason that the one that got 18 is because the one next door was 17. And now we've gone to 20. The next applicant will come in 12 months, 2 years' time, and they're going to ask for 22. It is a maximum height area. But we all know that precedence overrides that. There is already precedence there. It is not discretionary. And you've given your answer about that, and it's about what preferred. You know, I think the answer is a bit fluffy because it is pretty clear as to what the height limit is. And we're over it. We're over it only because there's precedence there. But you're allowing them to go even higher than the precedence that's already there. We want it to come back to the maximum of what is already there. We acknowledge precedence and the impact that that has on applications. It's pleasing to see weather protection canopies are a design requirement, and while the SRA can understand the planning officer's decision to waive the requirement that canopies have a limited presence at street edge, it nevertheless means that the logic of this position of the canopies will therefore never be part of the street scene. It is a requirement. It's not discretionary. But once again, they're being discretionary and they're saying, oh, because the ones next door don't have that, we're going to let you have that too. What this will mean is precedence. It will mean that every single development along there won't be required to have the canopies, even though it's a requirement. they've allowed them to get away with it only because of the neighbours that they don't have it. So, you know, as a consolation, canopies should be included along the walkway from Sturt Street to Dodd Street. The status quo will always prevail. Hopefully at some stage in the future, the word requirement will mean what it says.
Thank you very much, Tony. Just before you sit down to councillors, yes, Councillor Dr. Ball. Question for you, Tony, sorry.
No,
Tony.
I have a question for officers.
Sorry.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay. Are there any questions for Tony before he takes his seat? No, that's just a pen. No. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your submission, Tony, and for all of the work you do on behalf of South Bank residents. Julian, I think you can take this as your prompt to make your way back to the lectern. I think there will be a few questions, but Councillor Dr. Ball had her hand up. Is your leg okay? Sorry. Thank you for thank you for making your way to the lectern under what looks like considerable pain. Over to you, Councillor Dr. Ball.
Did you want to answer anything from Tony particularly before I ask a question? No.
I don't.
I have a question, not for Julian, but I don't know if there's anyone from Arts here. Creative Melbourne. My question, for whoever would like to field it, is if the proponent or indeed their next door neighbour had any difficulty in leasing creative spaces, is there a useful role for council to assist in matching them with creatives in need of spaces?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Dr. Ball. I think there is a role we can play. We do that for other artists. If they was to reach out to us, I can connect them with Lauren Bilkower.
Tremendous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball. Yes, Councillor Rouse.
Thank you. Question for management. I have three similar questions. For everyone watching at home who might be a little bit baffled by what's happening here, what happened in the previous item when it comes to the planning scheme, and I think this first part of this first question is similar to Councillor Camillo's. We just saw a building not be rejected but not be supported by the City of Melbourne for being 10 metres over the height limit. We've now got a building that is 65% over the recommended height limit. Can you please explain the reasoning behind why there's recommended limits and why the average punter can't just pick random rules and say, great, I'll go 65% over the speed limit because I'll take that as a recommendation?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Rouse. So the difference in this situation is that the height controls at the World Heritage Environs area on the previous matter are a mandatory height limit. They have applied through a separate pathway with the state government that enables the minister to disregard heights and setbacks and things like that should the minister choose to do so. In this particular case, the design and development overlay control here has a mandatory street wall requirement, so for that lower podium section, but the upper tower is a discretionary preferred maximum height. So it's not mandatory, it's discretionary. And to accompany that, there's a floor area ratio that is also discretionary at 10:1. Now, it is being met, which is part of the reason why officers are making the recommendation to the committee that we advise the minister that we're comfortable, and that's also in context of the two buildings that are either side of it. And that's all we can do is comment on what's before us, but that's how the controls are working in this situation.
Thank you very much. Well explained. Next question is going through some of the building diagrams that have been provided to us. It appears on some of the lower levels that the design of the building would be approximately 50 centimetres from the balcony of the neighbouring building to the south. Where does that sit in relation to the planning scheme? Does it allow for that? Does it comment on that? How is that impacted by the proposed building?
So all required setbacks for the building are compliant with the planning scheme. I don't have the plans in front of me, but they've been through a rigorous assessment. I think they would. I think the building's probably set back further than. What was the amount you suggested? 50.
If the diagrams that have been provided to us at a scale, approximately 50 centimetres. So on page 15
Sorry,
of our
Councillor
85.
Rouse, just one moment. I think we're just seeing if we can bring up. Did you want the presentation brought up, Julian?
We don't have every plan in the presentation.
Certainly level 3.
Is it possible to come back to that question?
Sure,
I
no
can
problem.
run through the others and I'll just go and review the plans and come back to
No
you.
problem. One final question for those watching at home who perhaps aren't across the planning scheme. If my trigonometry is to be trusted, and I did have to write Sokotoa, so if there is a mistake in my maths, I will stand corrected. But on Melbourne's sunniest day, which I believe is the 21st of December, no one below floor approximately 9.5, let's call it 10, will get direct sun into the building to the south. And on a winter's day, none of the building to the south at midday would be receiving direct sun. Where does that sit within the planning scheme? And what avenue of grievance do the people within the building to the south have, or is there none?
So the shadowing considerations are considered when determining what those built form guidelines are through the design and development overlay control. Certainly where you've got built form close to boundary, that is of a height generally anything over about 4 or 5 stories, you are going to be shadowing the building to the south or the property to the south no matter what. So that's taken into account when setting up the controls. There will be some shadowing, but the building will still enjoy sunlight throughout the morning, afternoon and those sort of things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of Julian? No? All right. Thank you very much, including taking not on notice a question about trigonometry. I know you've got one outstanding question.
That's okay, and
for
I'll come
Councillor
back to you on
Rouse,
that
and
other
you'll come back to us. Okay. Thank you for that. We have no other submitters on this item, so I'm not sure how you want to convey that information to Councillor Rouse, but Councillor Rouse, did you require it before we move to a debate on this item? Okay. Julian, at some point, if you could provide that information to Councillor Rouse, that would be appreciated. I'm now going to ask for a motion to be put on the screen. Thank you, and I will move that motion. I'm looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Leilu. I want to start by talking about a little bit of what is before the committee tonight, because that is a good news story. Tonight we are considering over $400 million in new development. That is a clear sign of the continued confidence in Melbourne's growth and strength. And personally, as the planning portfolio lead, I'm delighted to see that strong pipeline in Melbourne. There's been much discussion about this council's approach to development, about the fact we are proudly pro-development. But also, as you will have heard tonight, we want to ensure that development is done well. I'm pleased to say, in relation to my personal view, this project is a strong example of the principles we would like to see in development applications occurring in action. The planning permit before us relates to 141 to 151 Sturt Street, Southbank, and it seeks approval for the demolition of the existing building and the construction of a 20-storey residential building comprising 180 dwellings, a shop, food and drink premises, and importantly, given the location of this building, creative art spaces. The applicant is Woodbroke Proprietary Limited, represented by Urban Planning Collective. The architect is Roth Lohmann, and the estimated cost of development is $80.37 million. Now again, the Minister for Planning is the responsible decision maker. The Department of Transport and Planning, on behalf of the Minister, has referred this application to the City of Melbourne for comment. As you have heard, this subject site is located within the Capital City Zone, Schedule 7, Melbourne Arts Precinct. It's not just within that zone, it is the heart of the Melbourne Arts Precinct, and it forms part of a broader cluster of cultural, educational and creative institutions that, quite frankly, create the identity of this part of Southbank. I commend management's recommendation to not object to this application, subject to key conditions, to reinforce this council's commitment to design quality, to activation and to cultural excellence in the arts precinct. I wanted to speak briefly to, first of all, some of those conditions. This site's position in the Melbourne Arts Precinct provides a very unique opportunity to integrate residential living with creative and cultural uses. I'm pleased to hear on behalf of the applicant tonight that there has been some significant progress in identifying an appropriate creative tenant for the site. I'm grateful to Tony Penner for your submission about the difficulties that other developments have experienced, and I hope that is not the case in respect of this if a permit does issue. This development includes dedicated creative art spaces at both the ground and first floor. They will accommodate studio, rehearsal or gallery functions that will contribute to the ongoing vitality of this precinct. A condition that ensures these spaces are fit for purpose, that they are acoustically treated and that they are retained for creative use, consistent with this city's strategic objectives to embed art and culture within Southbank's urban fabric, is recommended for inclusion. We've also proposed some conditions in respect of the materials and texture of the building. A facade strategy is required to ensure that high quality and durable materials that reflect the character and craftsmanship expected in the arts precinct are used, that the podium features warm textural materials with fine grain articulation to deliver a human-scale street interface that will complement the surrounding arts buildings, and that all materials, finishes and colours are consistent with the approved facade strategy to ensure that the ultimate outcome does protect the architectural integrity and long-term visual quality. I also wanted to talk about the through block link. This proposal includes a publicly accessible through link connecting Sturt Street and Dodd Street. This significantly improves the pedestrian permeability and activation in the precinct, and a condition requiring the link to be open and publicly accessible at all times, to include active frontages, lighting, landscaping and paving treatments to align with the Arts Precinct Master Plan. I commend that condition to councillors. That connection will strengthen Southbank's network of walkable spaces. It will make Southbank an even better place, not just for those dwelling in this building, but for every visitor to the precinct. Finally, can I thank our planning officers for their work, Julian, who turns out to be a master of trigonometry on the fly, and to Nick McLennan, and to your teams for your careful assessment of this application. I commend this motion to my councillor colleagues. Over to you, Councillor Lalo. Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Lord Mayor.
Just very quickly to say that I think it's been a very good debate on this point, but it needs to be also said that there's a lot to really like about this development. I think Rothy Lohmann have done a really good job as architects. I particularly like the Cortain steel and materials chosen. Obviously, that's a reference to the ACCA building that's just down the road. Context is everything in architecture and design, and that's a really, really nice touch. And it will be a really interesting visual addition to Sturt Street, which is great to see. Like you, DLM, I also love the through block link. They're large blocks in this part of Melbourne, and so it's really important that developers don't try and claim every single square metre for developer profit, but actually recognise that creating publicly accessible spaces that help create a permeable, walkable suburb is just so important. So love seeing through block link there, and putting all developers in Southbank on notice. We really are looking to create more of these through block links through this densely populated suburb so that people can move about as freely as possible, and we create those connected neighbourhoods that we really strongly desire. And then just finally, really excited to see the creative space that's going into this development. The Southbank Arts Precinct is Australia's preeminent arts precinct. We've got concentration of over 20 arts organisations in the area, and they're national and world-leading arts organisations. We do want to see this continue to be a vibrant artistic area. And so here we have the planning scheme being used to try and encourage artistic and creative uses in buildings, and we couldn't be more delighted to see that occurring with this particular development. So even though we didn't get the big reveal tonight on who the creative organisation is that will be going in there, we look forward to getting that update. I was recently on a visit to Sydney and had the chance to see the City of Sydney Creative Studios on Bathurst Street, which is a great example of the city working with a developer to deliver creative spaces. In that case, they're being used for rehearsal spaces, soundproof music studios, visual art studios, and even an artist in residence apartment. It shows what can be done, and we look forward to seeing what happens with this particular project on Sturt Street. So all that said, really looking forward to voting for this in a few moments.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Camillo.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. It's just a little comment, because before I made a criticism about the 4 meters, that could be a difference in the building, but I have a compliment to do about this building. The fact that we're going to be building 32 3-bedroom apartments. And I welcome these big apartments to come to urban areas for us to have a better mix of the people that live in the city of Melbourne. So welcome, that's good. If developers want to come to the city of Melbourne, please consider that we have families, big apartment, and a better mix of apartments. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Camillo. Would any other councillor like to speak to this motion? No? Then I will put it to the vote. Could all those in favour please raise your hand? That has passed unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors. That takes us to the final item in the planning section. Agenda item 6.4, Ministerial Planning Referral, part of 184 to 192 Lorimer Street, Docklands. Would councillors like a presentation on this agenda item? No. In that case, I call on Jay Hollerick from Hollerick Town Planning. Jay, are you with us? Yes, thank you. Good to see you. I was requested the opportunity to address the committee in relation to this item. It's not Jay. Jay?
I am here, yes, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Oh, very good. We can see you and we can hear you, so that is wonderful. Jay, I just remind you to speak for no more than 3 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and the committee. Thanks for your time tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity to attend via Zoom as I wasn't able to attend in person today. I am here just to briefly represent Mirvac as the planning permit application for the site. Mirvac are excited by the opportunity to obtain a planning permit for their last piece of their Yarra's Edge precinct in Docklands. They've been developing the precinct for over 20 years now, so they're excited to get to this last piece of the puzzle, which includes the construction of the remaining extent of South Wharf Drive out to Lorimer Street. We've treated the tower as part of the assemblage of towers that occur down in the Balti precinct of Yarra's Edge. As with the other towers, you've got a highly tactile podium element to the tower with a geometric glazed facade tower element that sits above that podium. We've placed a lot of focus on activating our ground plane to all sides with a range of residential uses, commercial uses, some bike rooms and the like. There's 3 commercial spaces at ground floor. There's a highly active residential address to the Pocket Park to the east of the site. We have got a tower, as I said before, it's a glazed geometric tower that's got a zigzag pattern through some modulated expressions using some variations in the staggering of the balconies in the tower to create that zigzag pattern and to create some design interest in the tower element. The proposal is highly compliant with BADS, and we believe it sits very comfortably within this emerging precinct at this end of Yarra's Edge. You have the Voyager development that sits to the east that has been constructed by Mirvac that is roughly 30 metres taller than this proposal. You have a permitted site to the west that's outside the land controlled by Mirvac that has a planning permit that sits roughly 1 story shorter than this proposal. There's some imagery in the report that Matthew has prepared for the committee that outlines how the building fits within that context. We've got a development plan that applies to the precinct, and we think we're highly consistent with that development plan in terms of urban structure, those ground plane interfaces, the use mix with the commercial at ground floor, and that general form with the podium and the tower arrangements, and just how the development plan itself flags some flexibility in how the sites can be developed and how the heights through the precinct can be used. The 3 towers across them, I think we're about 6% below the cumulative height that the DP flags for the 3 towers in this Balti precinct. And finally, I'd just like to thank the planning team generally for their assistance with this application. It's been a little over 12 months since we had the original pre-app with the department and with the City of Melbourne. We've used a quite collaborative approach on the site, which has been thoroughly facilitated by Council's planning department, and we think we've ended up with a really good response for the site. We're satisfied with the conditions that have been suggested by Matthew in the committee report. So we just put out a thanks there for the team's work on the project generally. And that's pretty much it from me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jay. I had one question for you, and I think other councillors may do as well. My question was in relation to the built form and the floor plate. This is quite a bulky structure. Docklands is our beloved waterfront suburb. It's very important how that presents. And this is, obviously... the built form is quite a bulky structure. Has the applicant given any consideration, for example, to having 2 towers or finding other design solutions to reducing that bulk?
Yeah, the size of the site doesn't present an opportunity for 2 towers. I think if you see some imagery that's in some of the applicant documentation, the width of the tower actually sits relatively comfortably with the other buildings that are approved in the precinct. So there is the Fender Catsoulides designed approval that sits to the west that has a similar width east-west. As I said, the site itself the size of it doesn't present an opportunity to have 2 towers. What we've tried to do is actually place the tower on a corner of the site that actually comes down to the ground plane where we've created a public area and a publicly accessible forecourt at the intersection opposite the sheds. And you'll see that there's some quite significant separation distances between this tower and the approved tower to the west and the existing tower, the foyer tower, just to the east. So we think that floor plate of the tower still sits quite comfortably within the precinct. You've got some really significant building separations, sort of exceeding 20 metres to the west. I think it's exceeding about 40 metres to the east. So there's still quite a lot of space between the forms.
Thank you for that, Jay. Councillor Elliott, did you have a question?
I'm really just keen for you to talk about the artwork or on the corner and everything, and just wondering if you can just explain about. I do know a lot of people have gone into digital, and having that digital artwork is easier to then replace than just changing the hole and everything. But can you just comment a bit more about that? I don't have any big issues. I'm just curious about what you're thinking.
Yeah. This is part of the collaborative approach that we've taken with the authorities in terms of trying to provide a framework around this public art commitment without being too constraining in terms of restricting what ultimately is done. There will be a process through which they will put it out to an artist to design it. The documentation that we've submitted to date sort of sees the opportunity on the site there's a real kind of macro opportunity on the site. Lorimer Street is quite large. We're at a location quite close to where Ingalls Street intersects with Lorimer Street. So we actually think there's quite a decent opportunity to provide a large scale installation to take advantage of that situation. Certainly the potential for something digital has been sort of flagged as a general thing. Where we've placed the focus more is on the history of the site, both in terms of pre and post-European settlement, and we think that is a more important a guide for what should be in that urban art, and sort of let the artist go in terms of coming up with how that is best represented on the site. Again, the urban art strategy that we submitted with the application is a guide more to give an indication of ideas of how it could be done, particularly in how it ties in with the design of the facade, as opposed to being too specific about what that actual art element is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay. I don't think there are any other questions. Thank you so much for your submission.
Thank you.
All right. I'm now going to seek for a motion to be put on the screen. Thank you. I'm going to move that motion and I'm looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ayloo. I will now speak to this motion. The planning permit application before us tonight relates to the site at part of 184 to 192 Lorimer Street Docklands. It seeks approval for the construction of a 105.07 metre mixed-use building comprising 303 dwellings, 234 square metres of retail tenancies, 376 car spaces and the final extension of South Wharf Drive. The applicant is Mirvac Docklands Proprietary Limited, the owner is Development Victoria, and the architect is Mirvac Design Proprietary Limited. The estimated cost of development is $200.3 million. That alone is worth remarking upon. We have seen a really strong pipeline of development come before this committee tonight, but it is always pleasing to see that continuing interest and confidence in development in Docklands. The Minister for Planning is again the responsible decision maker. The Department of Transport and Planning, on behalf of the Minister, has referred this application to the City of Melbourne for comment. The subject site is located within the Docklands Zone, Schedule 1. It's affected by DD 049 and also the CityLink project overlay. The site forms part of the final parcel within the Yarra Edges Bolte Precinct Development Plan. This project will complete the built form sequence along Lorimer Street. I commend management's recommendation not to object to this permit, but subject to conditions, and I would like to reflect upon those in particular. Firstly, ground level activation. At ground level, the development delivers active frontages to both Lorimer Street and the future South Wharf Drive extension. That's going to be so important for this waterfront activation. With retail tenancies, as well as a residential lobby, public seating and generous footpath widths. The retail spaces and publicly accessible forecourt will contribute to the pedestrian experience and also local amenity, ensuring that the precinct is well connected. A condition is recommended that the final ground floor layout and landscape conform that the materials, the glazing, the entryways will achieve maximum engagement with the public realm. We know how important it is to get amenity and public realm right in Docklands when we're considering these development approvals. I also want to talk about the art installation on the podium, perhaps one of the most striking features of this development. The proposal includes a voluntary public art installation on the podium facade facing Lorimer Street and the future South Wharf Drive, as well as within the northwest forecourt. For those of you who have not seen this development application, it is worth having a look at the council papers, if only for this. It is a striking feature of this development, and that art component will reinforce Docklands' identity as a contemporary waterfront precinct. It will also enhance the visual experience of the podium and strengthen the pedestrian experience for all of those passing the building. A condition that secures the delivery of this artwork to the satisfaction of the City of Melbourne's Art and Culture branch is proposed by management, and I commend it. Finally, the facade strategy and design quality. I want to note the condition that the use of high quality, durable materials that are appropriate to the maritime context, which of course is very important here when we're considering a proposal along the Docklands waterfront. This will ensure that the design maintains architectural integrity, but also the visual quality that we expect on the Docklands waterfront skyline. Finally, can I thank our planning team, Nick McLennan, Julian Edwards, and your broader team for all of your work and your careful assessment of this application. I commend the motion to my councillor colleagues. Over to you, Councillor Leiloo.
Thank you, and I echo similar things. And the things I wanted to add, one is, yes, it is a beautiful designed building, and nothing expected less from Mirvac, who has a great history in our particular city. But also, thank you to our team. This is a very massive project, and to go through all the details and everything, I appreciate your insight and everything. I do want to comment on the car park. I really love the fact that there is a lot of car parks in here. But the only reason, one of the reasons why we do have car parks is because the state government does not want to put trams into Fisherman's Bend. But then again, we can only hope that they decide to change their mind on that, and when there is more and more people, because hopefully no more organisations are pulling out, like Melbourne Uni, and not pulling out, but halting their projects within certain areas because there is no confidence in there. But when there is no trams, what do? You have more car parks, and in a way, I do support that. So again, it goes against the state government's view about we want to reduce more car parks, but yeah, they're not willing to put transport down there. What I do actually, I'm very, very interested is the art installation space. I think it's quite. There's a great opportunity for artists to present their work, and I would also say that rather than having just something fixed, and what I've seen across the world now is going digital, and the fact that when people talk about it, they always talk about the Shinjuku cat, they talk about Chengdu's panda, they talk about all the different digital art that is going, and while it's transferable, it just shows that there is an opportunity. The cost of bringing things down, and then gluing it back up, and then using tape to showcase materials. It just takes a lot of time, but with digital, it's a lot easier. And so, hopefully, us here at City of Melbourne, we will do something about that and change it. I know I definitely am pushing very, very hard from that, because where this position is at night time, I think this is something that it can be very, very beautiful. And if there are more and more people there, I think that's something that we can really appreciate, and that might be a new attraction or draw card to people down there. So overall, very, very happy to support this. Looking forward to it, and hopefully we keep this momentum keep going.
Thank you, Councillor Leiloo, for that contribution, both with your planning hat on, but also your passionate advocacy with your Creative Melbourne hat on. Councillor Camillo.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Of course, I'm going to be talking about the 3-bedroom apartments. And just to give you a perspective for some of the City of Melbourne, or everyone's watching there, 73% of this complex is going to be composed of 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms plus. That's what I want to see more in the City of Melbourne. And the ratio is like 22% of 3 bedrooms, but again, building this mix, that means families can be close to Docklands. So you can have the free train to come to the city, you can walk to the city and embrace apartment living with the mixed use of all different uses. I just welcome this development. I know I have a lot of things that Deputy Lord Mayor has been told in here, Lord Mayor, Councillor Leo. I would like to mention about the 3 bedrooms.
Thank you very much, Councillor Camillo. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? No? In that case, I will put the item to the vote. Could all those in favour please raise your hands? That has passed unanimously. Thank you so much, councillors. I now call on the Lord Mayor to resume the role of chair.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor and Planning Lead. That was quite a big agenda there this evening for the planning portfolio, and isn't that good to see? Our next agenda item is 6.5, the $2 pool splash initiative and free swimming lessons for 2025-26. Would any councillors like to dive in and have a presentation on this item? Not even smiles. No? Okay, we'll move right along then. And I will call on our government's team to put a motion up on the screen, and then I will look around for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Guest, if you could just move back. I can now see Councillor Liu. There she is. She's so moved. And do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor David Griss. Back to you, Councillor Gladys Liu.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'm very pleased to move this item before us tonight. So if you remember last summer, the $2 pool splash and the free swimming lessons program have been an incredible success for our community. More than 9,000 people took advantage of the $2 entry, and that's a 38% increase in attendance compared to the year before. The free swimming lessons were just as popular, with nearly 400 participants and another 200 on the wait list. As someone who's passionate about health and fitness, I'm especially proud that so many of those participants were learning to swim for the first time. It really highlights the impact these programs have, making swimming more accessible and building confidence and safety in the water. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all the staff there, the swimming coaches, and also the lifeguards as well. Amazing jobs that you guys have done for our community. I'm delighted the council will again deliver the free swimming lessons in January at Melbourne City Baths, along with the $2 pool splash initiative this summer at Carlton Baths and North Melbourne Pool. Now, since the beginning or the opening in September, the Kensington Community Aquatic and Recreation Centre has already welcomed more than 30,000 visitors in its first month, a fantastic start. And for now, it's important that we let the centre settle into its first full summer. That's why we want to defer the $2 pool splash at Kensington until 26-27, give us time to properly assess capacity, safety, and staffing, ensuring that when we do roll it out, it's safe, well-managed, and suitable for the long term. So I commend the motion before us tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor Liu, and thank you for being such a champion for this initiative in this term of council. Over to you, Councillor Griffiths. Dive right in.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will steer clear of the puns, but very happy to...
Don't want to make a splash, huh?
Very happy, Lord Mayor, to add my voice to that of Councillor Liu, who has, as you say, been a champion of this program and is a champion of health and fitness in our municipality and sets a very high standard to which all other councillors do our best to aspire to reach. And this is just one of those examples of a fantastic project that is rolling out and rolling out right across our municipality. So many places that are going to benefit from this over the summer. And given my previous desire to have Kensington involved, rest assured that I have pushed hard alongside you, Lord Mayor, and alongside Councillor Liu and some of the other councillors to see what was going to be possible around this summer to get as much happening in that space as possible. I know many of us went out to the opening and saw those fantastic facilities, saw the way that the community was embracing them. It's fantastic to hear that there's already been 30,000 people using that facility, but given that's 1 month in, it's not surprising that the team do want to take the opportunity to make sure that everything is running properly before introducing this next level of things. So it's great to have that facility open. It's great to see that we'll be running swimming lessons out there, and it's great to see that we'll be able to think about that $2 splash initiative coming down the line. So there's a real approach there of making sure each bit of the process is right as we move along. So, Lord Mayor, I'm very happy to second this motion and hope that councillors will be willing to vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? I'm certainly would like to. So let me dive right in and say, firstly, on the swimming lessons, that I think it says so much about this council and the community in the city of Melbourne that we are offering free swimming lessons in Melbourne. Last summer, the free swimming lessons saw 2,000 free swimming lessons being held across our municipality. And this summer, we're going to go one better with 3,000 free swimming lessons being offered to our community. Learning to swim is a life skill, and it's something that we believe everyone in our community should get the opportunity to acquire. The Royal Life-Saving Society reports that there were 323 drowning deaths in Australia last year. That is an absolute tragedy. And I'm sure folks here would have seen those awful news reports of 2 drownings in Dandenong earlier this week. Learning to swim is an absolute essential life skill here in Australia, and we want everyone to have the opportunity to do so. And so this summer we'll be increasing the offer and offering 3,000 free swimming lessons for our community. On the $2 splash, I concur with my councillor colleagues and ultimately with the recommendation from management. We have seen when new aquatic centres have opened in other parts of Melbourne that there is an overcrowding problem in the first summer. I remember seeing those queues at Northcote when the pool opened there, was it a few short years ago. And so, ultimately, I think we should accept the advice that let's just see how the numbers settle, get a handle on what is best needed there at the Kenny Rec. I know that's also the strong view of the YMCA as well, who are managing that facility. So we're accepting the expert advice. We will see how Kenny Rec settles in its first summer, and we look forward to revisiting the issue after the summer. Would any other councillor like to speak to this item? Yep, Councillor Raf Camillo.
Lord Mayor, another thing we never mentioned before, and I have been thinking a lot, the fact being part of the portfolio safety, but I discussed with Gladys Leo last week, Councillor Gladys Leo, the importance of this program is for the youth to be in contact with sport and making friends, sociability, and we discuss a lot about kids with machetes and all this violence that you see in there. I think this is a way for us to not even target with community safety officers, cameras, this and that, and police, but thinking about the other way. How can you take these kids from violence and other things and socialize in an area that they live and open for that? So that's why I recommend a lot. And thank you, glad for that, for the hard work you're doing and everyday fighting, and convince all the councillors to use the stairs every time you come to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Any other councillors wish to speak on this item? No, in that case, we'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Delighted to declare that carried unanimously. All right, we move on to agenda item 6.6, Melbourne City Council Administration Buildings Smoke-Free Area Proposal. Would councillors like a presentation in relation to this agenda item? No, in that case, I would ask that the motion please be put on the screen, and I'm looking for a councillor to move that motion. Thank you, Councillor Gladys Liu. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor David Griffiths. Back to you, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to acknowledge the submissions from Mr. Gray on this item, and I'm also pleased to speak in support of this proposal, which seeks to make the entrances and footpaths in front of our council administration buildings, including here at Melbourne Town Hall, smoke-free. My late mother never smoked, but she had lung cancer. So I'm very passionate about how I can help create more smoke-free environment for everyone. So it also reflects in the community consultation. It shows that we have very strong support for this, with 72% of residents and 71% of businesses in favour of smoke-free areas proposal. Many people have told us that it is a positive step towards creating a healthier, cleaner, and more welcoming environment for everyone visiting our civic buildings. We already have 14 prescribed smoke-free areas across the municipality, including Bourke Street Mall and Greenwich Market, and this builds on that successful approach. This is a practical, community-backed measure that protects public health and enhances the experience of our city spaces. So I commend the motion to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Liu, for sharing that story about your family. I'm sure others have similar stories, and it's important that they get told when we're considering important pieces of policy like this. And it's hard to think of something to add after something that is such an important thing to have mentioned. I'm very happy to be supporting this motion. Melbourne, Victoria and Australia have led the way around the world on tackling smoking and the harm that it does to people in our community, and I think that this is another important part in that process. It's great to see that it is so widely supported by the people of Melbourne, and I think that's what will help to make it effective. It's obviously one thing for us to say that this is the rule. It's another thing to make sure that the people out there help to reinforce that in their fellow Melburnians, because we know that if we can move people away from smoking, and I look back to the kind of places that I grew up in, and we also, I think, have stories of people of my generation of going to nightclubs and pubs and waking up the next morning absolutely saturated in the smell of cigarette smoke and the damage that must have done to so many people along the way. We've seen those laws change. I think that's fantastic. I think this motion is another great step along the way.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? I'll just quickly... Oh, Councillor Scott, are you indicating you'd like to speak? No? Okay. I'll quickly make some remarks. I just want to point out that Melbourne already has in place 14 council-prescribed smoke-free areas. They cover the Queen Victoria Market, QV Melbourne, Bourke Street Mall and Market Street Park. And so this policy before us is about extending the smoke-free zones. Interestingly, as part of the community consultation on this particular update to the policy, there was very strong support. Almost 3/4 said of respondents said they'd support more smoke-free zones across the city, and so we can see a very clear trend of what's happening here. So, if there's no further councillors who wish to speak, Councillor Owen Guest, over to you.
Thank you. Just a question, really. Management might be able to help. I'm just wondering, I don't dispute any figures that have been put forward, but I'm just wondering where this ends. You know, where does it end when we become prescriptive, if you like, of what people can and can't do? Are we going to end up with a city of Melbourne where smoking is banned throughout? It's a question that I think is worth having a think about. Probably always going to have the majority not wanting to smoke. I don't smoke, but some do. It's a popular pastime. I like hamburgers too, and I know they're not good for me. So I'm just wondering where this ends.
Is that a question for council officers or for us as councillors, the decision makers on these matters?
Anyone who'd like to comment.
Councillor Griffiths?
I'd like to comment, Lord Mayor, which is that this motion is in line with our smoke-free Melbourne policy, and that probably the answers to your questions can be found therein, Councillor.
There's a roadmap there.
Management.
All right. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Andrew Rouse.
Further to Councillor Griffiths' comments, I'll note that in the report in front of us, it says that smoking is banned within 4 metres of entrances to certain Victorian government buildings. However, this does not apply to local government buildings. However, there is legislation in all other states and territories that includes smoking and vaping bans around local government buildings. So all this seeks to do is put us in line with the rest of the country.
Thank you, Councillor Rouse. Any other speakers to this item? All right, are we ready, councillors? One small puff for council, one giant breath for Melbourne. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I'm going to declare that carried unanimously.
Just glad we didn't get a reference, Lord Mayor, about you didn't inhale. Was that the...
Oh, I'm not even going to answer that one. All right, we move on to agenda item 6.7, Homelessness Advisory Committee recruitment outcome. Would councillors like a presentation in relation to this item? I'm taking that as a no, and therefore I will request... My jokes weren't that bad, were they? Gee whiz, people leaving in droves. They were that bad, I get it. Okay. We don't need a presentation on this item. We've got a motion before us. Can I get a mover for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Gladys Liu. Can I get a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor David Griffiths. Back to you, Councillor Liu.
Well, thank you again, Lord Mayor. As the chair of the City of Melbourne's Homelessness Advisory Committee, I'm very pleased to move the motion. As the report highlights, the Homelessness Advisory Committee provides strategic advice on homelessness policy and practice, ensuring council decisions are informed by community perspectives and aligned with best practice. I would like to sincerely thank the 3 committee members who have finished recently or resigned due to work from this committee for their commitment, professionalism, and dedication. Their contributions have been really invaluable. As noted in the report, an expression of interest process was undertaken to recruit new members to fill these vacancies. We have received 26 applications. The nominated new members were selected based on their expertise in service delivery, housing, health interventions, and engagement with people experiencing homelessness. And importantly, they also bring valuable perspectives on youth and family violence, helping to address gaps in the current committee membership. I would like to thank all the applicants for their interest and commitment to supporting this very important work. Having seen the work of this committee firsthand, I can attest to the impact that it has, and I commend the motion before us tonight. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm very happy to be seconding this motion. I'll be brief, but I certainly want to add my voice to that of Councillor Liu in thanking the people who have been serving on that committee in the past, and understanding that many of them have moved on to other roles and other places. And so it's important that we ensure that we have a full cohort in that committee so that those conversations that take place there can be as fulsome as possible. And also thank everyone who has applied in this process. It's great to see that so many people want to ensure that the voices of people experiencing homelessness are heard here at Council. We obviously have a very large number of policies in any normal year, but I think probably this year more than most, a large number of policies that we are considering that affect the lives of people experiencing homelessness on our streets, and this committee has a very, very important role in making sure that people with lived experience and the people who work with the people experiencing homelessness are heard when we're considering those important policies. So with those brief words, I'm very happy to be seconding the motion.
All right, thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Any other speakers to this item? No, in that case, we'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. All right, that does conclude reports from management. We move to agenda item 7, general business, and there are 2 items of general business. The first of those, 7.1, notice of motion. Deputy Lord Mayor Rashina Campbell, concern over congestion levy increase and impact on city visitation. I will now call on Daniel Rose, who requested the opportunity. Oh, sorry. No, we don't need a... Oh, yeah, sorry. I now call on Daniel Rose, who requested the opportunity to address the committee in relation to this matter. Do we have Daniel with us online? No, we don't. Okay, apologies there, everyone. Do we have Aaron Moon, good friend of this chamber? All right, can we please get Aaron Moon up on the screen? Please make sure we've got the connection. All right.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can do even better than that. We can hear and see you, Aaron. Far
Brilliant.
away.
Hello.
Great to see you. You have 3 minutes.
All right. I don't want to sound like Jacinta Allen fanboy over here, but again, I'm opposing the motion put forward tonight. I agree with Jacinta Allen's point of view on this, and I don't want to see the City of Melbourne right to reconsider the congestion levy increase. Congestion levy is proven, and it's an effective policy all around the world. Cities that have introduced similar measures, such as New York, London and Stockholm, have seen less congestion, clean air and stronger long-term economic outcomes from this. In New York, modelling shows congestion pricing will reduce traffic by around 17% and fund billions in public transport upgrades. London's charge has cut congestion about 20%, while retail spending has recovered and grown once people have experienced a safer and more walkable city. And in Stockholm, public support has increased dramatically after residents have seen smooth traffic and clean air in their city. So here in Melbourne, we're facing some of the exact same challenges that those cities had. Gridlock, emissions, too much valuable land given over to car parking, and the congestion levy rebalances this by encouraging people to use these new train stations that we have and our active transport facilities, just like our council plan has outlined. So most people come into the city and stay and travel by public transport, walking or cycling, and not by car, the majority of people. Making car parking more reflective of the true cost won't stop people coming in. It simply supports fairer, cleaner, and more efficient access for everyone. Importantly, walking away from this policy means walking away from urgent climate action. And the Deputy Lord Mayor recently was on ABC News this week saying climate change is the most significant issue for young people. So supporting this motion would send the opposite message, that short-term political pressure matters more than long-term environmental responsibilities. If we're serious about sustainable futures, we need policies that discourage unnecessary car trips and reinvest in our better, cleaner transport options. Melbourne has an opportunity to show leadership on climate, on transport and fairness, and how we use our city's limited space. So for those reasons, I urge councillors to reject that motion.
Thank you very much for that, Aaron, and thank you for your contribution as always. I don't believe there are any other submitters on this item. Just checking with... Oh, Chris Thrum. Sorry, Chris. I'm glad I looked to the back of the auditorium. Please make your way to the lectern.
I've got a slide that I want to put up. You've got the image. Okay. We have a technical. Okay. Thank you.
Music work?
Thank you, Lord Mayor Nick Rees. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor Rashina Campbell. I do support this motion. We're looking at agenda item 7.1. Notice of motion, Deputy Lord Mayor Rashina Campbell, concern of congestion levy increase in impact on city visitation. Aaron Moons mentioned New York. Well, I got news for you, Aaron. Frank Sinatra was once asked, how do you think Melbourne compares to New York? He gave an answer. Now, in regards to one of the arguments being put forward, we need to match Sydney in terms of its congestion levy. Well, I can tell people we do not need to follow Sydney. You know, I'm not going to mention any former premiers who do enjoy dining at Florentino's restaurant quite regularly when they come down for a visit, but we do realise that Melbourne is superior in the hospitality scene, Melbourne's superior in the music scene as well, and we don't need to try and match Sydney. It's like we are better than Sydney. I agree with the arguments that Rashina Campbell's putting forward about encouraging workers to come in via their cars. We have to have a balanced perspective on all things. Now, if you're looking at congestion levy, and our good friend up in Brisbane, Adrian Schrinner, the Lord Mayor, he'd point out to Nick Rees, he said, like, Nick, we do not have a congestion levy. I mean, we don't need a congestion levy. We work out other methods through Wilson Parking and what have you to have more income and revenue and still have people coming into the city. So, and considering that Brisbane had the superior rugby league team this year, but Melbourne Storm should bounce back next year, we should look to Brisbane and maybe even reduce the congestion levy. We're got to encourage visitors to come to Melbourne. Well, 10 years ago, it was Melbourne Music Week, 13th to 20th November 2015. And Melbourne Music Week would come after the Victorian Racing Carnival, and it would be like the launch pad into summer for all the musicians and everyone in the music industry. People loved Melbourne Music Week, created a beautiful vibe, an incredible vibe. For example, this Friday, South Summit, sort of like an incredible Perth sort of reggae, hip-hop, indie rock band are playing at 170 Russell Street. That's right, 170 Russell Street this Friday, South Summit playing. If Melbourne Music Week was on, they would have a higher profile, they'd have more sort of support perhaps in the local industry. So many Melbourne acts really launched themselves further into their career. I know for a fact that Courtney Barnett appreciated the high profile that was given to her years and years ago before anybody really knew her. So let's keep the congestion tax the same or maybe reduce it towards what Brisbane's got. And let's reintroduce Melbourne Music Week because we need to support the local venues. There are canaries in the coal mine. You guys have all read James Young's letter. I don't need to repeat the sentiments of that. I'm sure the Lord Mayor knows and understands what I'm talking about. We've heard Fiona Duncan from Music Victoria asking for more recognition of music in the annual yearly report. So I think bringing back Melbourne Music Week would be a clear sign that we are serious about bringing more people back into Melbourne. They hijacked Melbourne Music Week and turned it into Always Live, and it's diluted everything. The industry wants Melbourne Music Week back. Always Live. The thing about Always Live, as I conclude, Lord Mayor, what is Always Live? I mean, for me and my friends, Always Live is Wednesday after 9 p.m, you're at the pub and the Hong Kong races come on, and they'll tell you, this is Always Live, Wednesday night, Hong Kong racing. That's Always Live. Melbourne Music Week is Melbourne Music Week, and we need to bring back the music to Melbourne.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rashina.
Thank you very much, Chris, for that trip down memory lane to the glory days of Music Week 2015, and thank you for your insights on the congestion levy as well. Much appreciated. Important addition to the debate. All right, I'll ask you to resume your seat. Are there any other submitters on this one? No, I don't believe there are. So I'm looking back to you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and I take it you're the mover of this motion.
I am the mover of this motion, Lord Mayor, and I believe I have a seconder in Councillor Scott. Wonderful. So I will seek to... Wonderful. Good to see you, Councillor Scott. I will seek to have this motion put on the screen. I believe it's an amended motion. Wonderful. Thank you, Council Business. Well, councillors, as we meet tonight to discuss matters that will shape the city's future, the state government is set to meet this month to consider an increase to the congestion levy, which in my view would have a crippling impact on our traders, our visitors and our workers. The congestion levy, essentially a tax on car parks in the CBD and inner city, is set to be expanded in terms of the geographical area it will cover, but it's also set to be increased by an incredible 73%. This motion makes clear that the City of Melbourne does not support that increase, that we are asking the state government to halt it, to reconsider it. We know that Melbourne is a city where multiple types of transport are part of the mix. We have some great public transport links, but you've heard tonight that there are large parts of the City of Melbourne that are not accessible by public transport, including places like Fisherman's Bend and part of Docklands. We know that many Victorians do not have good public transport links, and we know that active transport into the City of Melbourne is not an option for every Victorian, either because they don't live close enough to the city or because of their personal circumstances. We know that car parking and cars will continue to play a role in the city's transport mix. And we also know that as we head into the Christmas season, shoppers and families choose to come in by car. We want people in the city doing their Christmas shop. We want them to come here to buy their gifts, not online, not to their suburban shopping centres. And more broadly, we know every day there are workers and visitors who choose to access the city by car who will only access the city by car. In the City of Melbourne, there are more than 130 car parks that supply 68,000 off-street spaces for visitors and workers. And the congestion levy will impact them, both those that are commercially owned and those that are owned by the City of Melbourne. The Property Council's analysis found this 73% increase proposed by the state government will result in an extra cost of as much as $1,386 per spot that will be passed on to motorists. It's worth thinking about the history of the congestion levy. Since it was introduced, it's been increased by over 600%. 100%. Somewhat startlingly, in that time, there hasn't been much change in the contribution made to the local government areas in which it is collected. It continues to be a significant revenue raiser for the state government, but we're yet to see either a benefit locally or modelling about it having an impact on congestion. I'm so grateful to Aaron Moon for his submission. I agree with him about the need for urgent climate action. But what we haven't seen is any modelling or any evidence from the state government about how this is leading to a reduction in congestion. We haven't heard any evidence about why a 73% increase in particular is necessary. What we have heard, though, from people who've provided written submissions, and I thank Bill Lang from Small Business Australia, I thank Luke Harris from the Collins Street Precinct, is that this will be a deterrent to the people who come to the city, particularly in a cost of living crisis, making it more expensive to visit the city. That does nothing for our economic recovery. It will be a deterrent to workers who are already being encouraged to work from home instead of their city workplaces. It will be a deterrent to visitors who could do their shopping or eating in suburban shopping strips and major shopping centres instead. It will deter visitation and it will deter investment. Now, there are plenty of green shoots in Melbourne's economic recovery. There are so many people who have worked so hard to make Melbourne bounce back from challenging times, including you, Councillor Scott. But a sharp rise in parking costs will risk reversing the progress we have made to reactivate the city. It undermines the support we have provided to city businesses, and we have heard from industry bodies, from traders, and indeed from other councils that have voiced strong opposition to the proposed changes. Their message is consistent, and I'm quoting a mayor from another council to make this point. He said, higher parking costs will deter visitation. They will stall economic confidence. This is not about congestion. This is about revenue raising. And that was the position of the Mayor of the City of Yarra. We're asking the state government to stop this proposed increase of 73%. Our city has withstood the economic devastation from COVID as being the world's most locked down city. We've withstood 2 years of protests. We've withstood a push to enshrine working from home. I don't think the city should also have to take a 73% tax on people who want to come here, who want to be part of our economic recovery. We should not risk reversing the progress we have all worked so hard to make. Over to you, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, DLM, and I thank you for bringing this important motion to Council tonight. And I would like to also speak in strong opposition to the state government's proposed significant increase to the congestion levy in 2026. As you have rightly pointed out, while it's framed as an environmental or traffic management measure, in reality, this is simply an additional tax on doing business in the CBD, and it will hit at precisely the wrong time. Our city, as we know, is still rebuilding weekday visitation. Office occupancy remains below pre-pandemic levels, and small traders, cafes, galleries, and hospitality operators are all depending on a steady return of workers, visitors, and event goers to survive. A massive 73% increase in the congestion levy will make parking in the city even more expensive, discouraging suburban visitors, deterring regional Victorians, and further penalising small business owners who need access for deliveries, staff, and customers. This is not a targeted emissions measure. It's a blunt Allen government revenue grab that will only undermine Melbourne's economic recovery and the very vibrancy we're all working so hard to restore. If the state government wants to reduce congestion, it should invest in public transport reliability, extend evening and weekend services, and improve safety and accessibility, not impose new costs on the businesses and workers who keep this city alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Are there other councillors who wish to speak to this item? Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wish to oppose this motion, being as it is in direct contradiction of Council's endorsed award-winning transport strategy, and it offers no justification in this document or evidence for doing so, departing from our endorsed, established and lauded position on the congestion levy. It's Council's endorsed position and the independent opinion of Infrastructure Victoria that the congestion levy has been successful. While research from Infrastructure Victoria and the Grattan Institute have led them both to recommend that the levy be increased and its geographic coverage expanded. The mover of this motion called for evidence. Infrastructure Victoria, which is an expert body independent of government tasked with advising us, has called for these changes to the levy at least twice, recommending them in their 5-year focus report in 2018 and again in their Good Move report, which seeks to recommend ways to fix transport congestion. And we shouldn't discount the benefits of reducing congestion, including, of course, benefits for business. Our own endorsed transport strategy specifically seeks increases in the levies charged to reduce traffic congestion. It seeks regular review and regular increases to the levy to reflect the growing population of Melbourne. It seeks expansion of the Category 2 areas to include Richmond, South Yarra, Windsor and Prahran. And it seeks to allocate more of the revenue that goes to this council and others affected to be spent on projects which improve efficient transport, such as footpath expansions, not just general maintenance of footpaths or replacing or upgrading footpaths, and to be spent on physically protected bike lanes, dedicated tram and bus lanes and other ways of alleviating congestion. The City of Melbourne currently receives $7 million annually from this levy. This amount was a fixed dollar figure that has not increased since the levy was introduced 20 years ago. So while the state government's revenue from this levy has increased significantly over that time, the City of Melbourne's proportion has not. And for context, Sydney's parking space levy is significantly higher than ours here. For the Category 1 parking bays, that is, Sydney charges over $3,000 per bay annually, whereas Victoria charges only $1,750. Most visitors to Melbourne do not drive. Most business revenue is not from drivers. Bringing more cars into Melbourne is not how we will revitalise the inner city. We do this by reducing, not increasing, congestion and making Melbourne a more pleasant, attractive, easy place to move around with less traffic noise and air pollution, and a safer place for vulnerable road users like pedestrians, cyclists and disabled Melburnians. So what we should be doing instead of this is being true to our endorsed transport strategy and further advocating for a percentage of the levy revenue, not this fixed amount that has depreciated over such a long period, and for an increased amount overall, given how much, like six-fold increase in the levy revenue in just the past 8 years, and more spending on active transport and safer active transport, and introduce the dynamic pricing that both Infrastructure Victoria has called for and our own transport strategy envisages for the parking that we control as a council. So before voting, I would urge my colleagues to consider carefully the possibility that given this legislation has not passed both houses and negotiations continue as to the MOU, which preserves the portion that this council will receive from this revenue, consider carefully that the possibility that our chances of negotiating an increased share of this levy may be undermined by this motion before us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball. Councillor Raf Camillo.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to make a question for the management because, so considering shifting costs, lately the state government has been transferring the shifting costs proposing with the congestion levy, emergencies levy. Can management provide advice of how can we revoke any rebates that we currently provide to state government, which can offset the increase that we will occur as a part of congestion levy? I'll give an example. For example, the state government doesn't pay zero rates for all the buildings that they use in the city, but now the state government wants to increase the congestion levy and just increase the cost. Do we have an avenue to somehow recover these costs? Is anyone could help me on that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Camillo, and through you, Lord Mayor. Unfortunately, Councillor Camillo, I don't think we're in a position to just apply a rebate or revoke a rebate from state government. So they do get an exemption on rates, and we can't revoke that unless we have a conversation with state and it's a joint agreement. Unfortunately, that's just the way the legislation is.
So the legislation is that the state government can increase tax on us and put levies, but we can never do anything to them back.
That's
is that
my
how it works?
understanding, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
All right. Thank you very much. Councillor Owen Guest.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Scott, for bringing this motion. I completely concur with your thoughts. What the state government has done to Victoria's budget will go down in the annals of shame as debts there are forecast, I think, to reach close to $200 billion, and it shouldn't be up to the Melbourne City Council or any other council to try and meet that shortfall, which is what this congestion levy is doing. And to that, you can, of course, add the emergency services levy as well. High debt levels at all levels of government are contributing factors ultimately to falling living standards, which is something none of us want to see. As I said, the heavy lifting should not be done by us here at the Melbourne City Council. I very much in favour of this motion, and I think we should do all we can to fight back, because whenever I hear the phrase we need to find more revenue streams, which is occasionally said at council level, this is the state government's equivalent. And we should be fighting back against that and asking them to actually find a few expenses that perhaps you could reduce, because that's what good government and good budgeting does, which is not what they've done, and it's not our job to fix it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Guest. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I also want to thank Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Scott for this motion. I have heard time and again from people complaining about how expensive it is to park in the city of Melbourne. And people don't know that it is not us. We have been asked we have been forced to increase the parking fee because of these congestion levies imposed on us by the state government. We get a bad name by just doing this, and this is just not what we need to put up with. Just like people see the violence on our streets, but wait a minute, it is the state government that's not doing the right thing in having enough police, not having the bell tightened, and all the things that the state government could have done, but they haven't. And we've got the bad name because of that. So I think the other thing is cost of living. Everyone is crying for, please don't put any more pressure on cost of living by the state government imposing this congestion levy. This is another pressure on everyone. So to visitors to the City of Melbourne and also to our businesses who rely so desperately for people coming to the city, I just want to thank you again for this motion, and I will fully supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Any other councillors want to speak to this? Councillor David Griffiths.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I won't be supporting the motion tonight, but I do recognise the fact that the Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Scott, I'm sure, are motivated by a desire to see Melbourne thrive. We are perhaps coming at the problem from two different aspects, but I don't doubt that that's the intention that they have behind this. Councillor Ball, I agree with many of the points you were making. I won't reiterate and drag through the endorsed council transport plan or the information from Infrastructure Victoria, but I do think that that is all very relevant. I would like to see more of that share of the money coming to the City of Melbourne, but I notice that that is not something which is featured, I think I'm right in saying, at any point in this motion or the background, and instead much of the rhetoric that we've heard tonight is about taking the opportunity to stick the boot into the state government as if there was no state government investment in the City of Melbourne, and encouraging the very kinds of things the congestion levy was trying to fund. I think it's interesting, if not slightly ironic, that we're debating this more or less a fortnight before the new metro tunnels open, a new public transport facility that will enable an additional 500,000 people to come into the City of Melbourne every week. That is exactly the kind of transport solution that we as a city need, not just as a municipality, but as a greater Melbourne area. And that's the kinds of things that have been funded out of this. Again, seeing funding for, I think it's $1.5 billion worth of new trams to run on my beloved 57, but also the 59 tram lines. These are the kinds of investments that we're seeing at the moment. And to suggest, as some people have done in this debate, that all of this is about taking from the City of Melbourne and giving nothing back, I think is inaccurate, because what we are seeing is a need from government, or say a desire from government, to refit the way that people visit the City of Melbourne, and that there is investment that has been made to do that. I would join my fellow councillors in calling for further investment into places like Docklands, into places like Fisherman's Bend. I would completely agree there's a need for more public transport there, and I'm happy to call out the government when I think that they have not done the right things on that front. But to have this entire debate a fortnight before we see that opening of, $15 billion worth of public transport infrastructure, I think I wanted to set the record straight on that front, and I won't be supporting the motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Any other councillors want to speak to this item? Yep, over to you, Councillor Andrew Rouse.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'll follow on from Councillor Griffiths and take my time to debate the topic rather than punching up at other levels of government. I largely agree with most of what's been said before, and I think this is a really interesting topic because I think everyone wants to see a similar outcome in terms of access for public transport. But again, I think most of the council seems to come from two different sides. I absolutely share the frustration of the people who live in areas where there is no or minimal public transport. We've already heard about Fisherman's Bend. To be told that there will be a 30-year wait for trams into Fisherman's Bend does not excite anyone at all, considering that is probably the biggest development we'll be seeing within the city within the near future. I note the comments mentioned by our good friend of the chamber, Aaron Moon. However, all the examples that he held up to say this is where things have worked really well are fundamentally different to what we've seen here in Melbourne. What we see in Melbourne is effectively a tax on parking, not a levy on congestion. All the other examples where this has worked and worked well, toll cars as they enter into an area rather than looking at the cars that are parked in there. And that means that this has no bearing on cars that are travelling through the city, through some of the most heavily used and congested roads in Melbourne. So it's not actually tackling the real problem at hand here. Furthermore, I think in relation to what we're seeing here is it impacts those most who have no other option than to pay for parking. Those that are on shift work, retail, hospitality, who are travelling from parts of Melbourne that don't have access to public transport. I've heard many times in this chamber people say things like a fine disproportionately impacts the poor, and I think this is another example of that in action. What we have seen in Melbourne recently is existing car parks just cordon off sections of the car park to reduce their overall footprint. So what that means is the car parks are still sitting there, but now the amenity to the public is just not there at all. And so that is a lose-lose situation because the potential revenue from the car park is lost in terms of the state and for the City of Melbourne, but it sits there empty. Probably one of the biggest reasons, though, why I think I would oppose an increase on the congestion levy, which we all know and understand will be directly passed on to the consumer, is for people like my parents who visit the city often. They're favourites down at the MSO's Morning Melodies on a Monday morning with hundreds of other elderly patrons there. And unfortunately for them living in the suburbs, they are not physically able to walk the half hour down to the station. And they're not willing or prepared to risk leaving their car at the station after numerous issues there as well. So they are left with minimal options other than to drive into the city to see the wonderful and amazing arts performances that they do. And without that ability to do that, without the ability to afford to be able to do that, they certainly would reduce their visitation to the city. So I share the concerns and fear that both Councillor Scott has mentioned, but also the numerous trader bodies that have spoken on the matter as well. At the end of the day, the solution to this must be a carrot and not a stick. Let's see better public transport for all within the City of Melbourne and broader Melbourne to ensure that we do have better access to the city. Yes, the new Metro Tunnel was a fantastic addition, but again, how long did that take and how late was that? And we're still waiting to see new additions and areas within Melbourne that need to be opened up with increased public transport. There are so many things that can be done to increase that, and I look forward to working with my councillor colleagues in increasing advocacy in those areas as well, and I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Rouse. Any other councillors want to speak to this item? I'll speak to it as well. I will be supporting the motion this evening for three key reasons. The first is I think that this is the wrong time for a tax increase on Melbourne. This is the wrong time for a new tax on parts of the inner city. The economic trajectory for Melbourne is positive. There are plenty of green shoots out there. The signs are good, but it's a fragile growth that we are experiencing at the moment, and confidence is important that we maintain confidence. And this is completely the wrong time for a new tax on our city. Our retailers, our hospitality sector, our restaurateurs, our traders are all crying out in protest about this new tax. They want relief, not a new burden on them. I also think that this new tax, this expanded tax, this increased tax will put the inner city of Melbourne at a disadvantage against suburban shopping precincts, who do not have to pay a 19% increase on parking, which is what this will equate to. You know, if you go and do your shopping at Chadstone, you can park for free, get a car wash, and refuel your EV for free as well. They're doing everything they can to make it as appealing as possible for people to travel there. So with the new tax on the inner city parking, that will put us at a disadvantage against those suburban shopping precincts who are fiercely competing to steal customers away from the inner city. And then thirdly, and this picks up on a point made by Councillor Andrew Rouse around the design of the congestion levy, which, as he rightly described, is really just a property tax on car parking spots. I very strongly support improving air quality and lowering emissions. I recognise that air pollution caused 7 million premature deaths in cities around the world, but this is not the way to design a tax that will lower emissions. If you want to see how to do that well, look at the example of New York, look at the example of London. That is not the model which has been taken up here in Victoria and here with this so-called congestion levy. So it's poorly designed and it will not achieve its objectives and it will not lower emissions and improve air quality in our city, unfortunately. So for all those reasons, I will be supporting the motion. Deputy Lord Mayor, did you want to write a reply on this lengthy debate?
I do. Thank you, Lord Mayor, but I will be brief. Firstly, can I thank my councillor colleagues for the quality of debate tonight? I wanted to address two matters. The first is this motion and our Transport Strategy 2030. It's worth noting the Transport Strategy 2030 was adopted by this council, not this term, not last term, the term before. A lot has changed in Melbourne since then. Infrastructure Victoria reports referred to by Councillor Dr Ball. They're dated, if I understand correctly, 2018 and 2020. A lot has happened in Melbourne since then, including 6 lockdowns, a cost of living crisis, and the start of an economic recovery. The reason that I am bringing this motion to the chamber tonight is that they say in politics timing is everything, and the time is not right to cripple Melbourne traders, Melbourne visitors, Melbourne workers with a 73% tax increase when we are doing everything we can to get them back into the city. The second thing I wanted to say is much has been said about the City of Melbourne's take of this tax and the fact that it has not been consistent with the 600% increase in the congestion levy. Paragraph 1.4 of this motion is drafted broadly. It requests the Lord Mayor write to the Premier and the Treasurer asking them to reconsider implementing the proposed changes. And for my part as the mover of the motion, if the Lord Mayor wanted to write asking for the increase not to be proceeded with, but also noting that perhaps it is time the state government passed on a greater share of the congestion levy to the local government areas in which it is collected, I do not think that would be inconsistent with this motion. That concludes my remarks. I commend the motion to my councillor colleagues.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. So without further ado, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Scott, Councillor Camillo, Councillor Rouse, Councillor Leilou, Councillor Rees, Councillor Louis, Councillor Guest, Councillor Liu. All those against, Councillor Griffiths and Councillor Ball. That motion is carried. Okay, we move on to our next item of general business, which is a petition. And this is a petition regarding safety and amenity concerns due to Westgate Tunnel in North and West Melbourne. Can I please request a motion be put up on the screen? It's a motion that we receive and note the petition. It has... and I'm going to move that motion. I'm looking for a seconder. We're here receiving a motion. Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. And I will say in receiving Noting and receiving this petition, it says, we request the City of Melbourne take immediate action to ensure the safety and amenity of the public and residents in Victoria Street, North Melbourne and West Melbourne and surrounding streets, in particular loss of parking, speeding, intersection and road closures, heavy traffic including trucks funneled through residential streets, noise and health concerns. And there are 65 signatures on that petition. I might, before we, Councillor Griffiths, did you want to speak to it as seconder?
No, Lord Mayor, I'm happy to.
All right, thank you, seconder. I might ask you, CEO, if you're able to provide us with any update regarding safety and amenity concerns in West Melbourne and any update on the TAP process which we are embarking on with the Victorian Government.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I can provide some updates in the context of tabling this petition. As you know, Council have been very active in advocating for consideration of amenity in North and West Melbourne as a result of the forthcoming opening of the Westgate Tunnel. If I point to the Future Melbourne Committee meeting decision of the 2nd of September, Council resolved to request the state government to publish additional traffic modelling in relation to the impacts of the opening of the tunnel, as well as seeking a report from management in relation to reconciliation of the TAP program, the Transport and Amenity program, including projects that had been committed to, also seeking an update on the status of the Spencer Street North Master Plan and the Victoria Street Opportunities Plan, as well as an update on the Hawke Street Linear Park. So they've sought a report from us, from management, and that is scheduled to come to Council at the Council meeting on the 25th of November, so in 2 weeks' time. In addition to that, I can advise that the Department of Transport and Planning have now confirmed with management that the additional traffic modelling that Council has requested will be made available on the Department's website before the 19th of December, as well as that the City of Melbourne, in partnership with the Department of Transport and Planning, have proposed a community meeting on Thursday the 20th of November to make themselves available to residents of North and West Melbourne to discuss issues relating to the opening of the tunnel. This will include presentation of some options for the Hawke Street Linear Park, whereby we will be seeking feedback from residents around their preferences in relation to that project and those options. We will make the details of this community meeting available on our website so community are aware of the location and time of that meeting. In addition, Lord Mayor, I can confirm that I myself have been in direct contact with the Secretary of the Department of Transport and Planning on these matters and will continue to engage proactively in a dialogue with the department around ensuring that we are collectively carefully monitoring the road network within North and West Melbourne. I would encourage residents who are concerned to continue to raise those matters with both the City of Melbourne and the department, particularly if there are concerns in relation to safety. There have been recent traffic management treatments that have been implemented. We're keen to observe and monitor as to whether those traffic management treatments are effective, and we'll certainly be proactive in raising and continuing the dialogue with the department, as I've said, to ensure that we can, wherever possible, minimise the amenity impacts of the opening of the tunnel. I think I'll leave it there, Lord Mayor.
All right, thank you. Very comprehensive, CEO. Much appreciated. All right. Does anybody want to speak to this motion? In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of us accepting the petition, declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on from general business and we now move on to urgent business. This is business that relates to, arises out of a matter which has arisen since distribution of the agenda and cannot safely or conveniently be deferred until the next meeting. I don't believe there are any items of urgent business before us. So we will move on to public questions. And I believe we do have some people who are patiently waiting to ask questions, and a further 15 minutes have been allocated. So come on up, please. Introduce yourself and ask away. Hello, John.
Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor, for the time. There's a lane out here which runs parallel with Russell Street called Bryan Lane, and I've come once before about it should have been O'Brien Lane, but there again is an issue. Back in March 2024, I draw the council's attention to a water leak from 140 Burke Street. It's an outlet pipe that's been running continuously since then and still today. Also since then, closer to Little Burke Street, the Ginza Tenyaki, which is a 2-level building, has a plastic pipe that's running out like a shower, good for people who needed to have a quick shower in the city, but that's been going similarly for more than a week with this heavy downpour. It's a plastic pipe with a broken outlet and it's falling directly onto Bryan Lane. And the third one is the Red Emperor restaurant that has a large black cooking stain or discharge onto the asphalt, which is right next to Little Burke Street. We use this laneway quite a bit because it's a shortcut to the tram stop and whatever, and quite a number of pedestrians use it and admire the graffiti that's there, and also the bodily waste to get left in the doorways. But we did have the Robinson family come and look at it earlier in the piece, but nothing's been done about it. And really, before Christmas, I'd like to see the 3 issues dealt with pretty soon.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thanks for your attention to detail around our city and your caring and commitment by coming along and asking us about these matters. We will take note of the 3 items that you have raised, and we will do everything we can to get them fixed. Rick Kwasek, our Head of Infrastructure, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the question. We'll absolutely follow up on those items. I'm not sure why the previous item that you've reported hadn't been addressed, but certainly I'll take those details from you and follow up on the 3 items.
It's an outfall from 140 Burke Street that's probably 5 metres in, 10 metres maximum. I thought Councillor Louis walked down that way all the time because he used to live near there originally. Right?
That was the nice Red one. Emperor, Bamboo House. He lives at plenty of places through that part of Melbourne, it's fair to say. Thank you, John.
And finally,
and thank you, Rick, for acknowledging that John has asked about some of these items before, and let's ensure that he doesn't come back and ask us a 3rd time, please.
Could I add an O to the O'Brien to make it fit in as it should do with the city? Because Brian, I don't think, is quite the Irish accent as it should be.
Brian and O'Brien, we will take that on board as well and have a think about it. Thank you very much, John. Really appreciate your questions. All right. We also have, I believe, Mary Masters with us online. Please say it so. Is she with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can hear and see you, Mary, on the big screen.
Oh, amazing.
Here at Town Hall.
So great. Wonderful. Thank you for having me. I've made a submission to council around the topic of the Westgate Tunnel project publications, which were in response to Councillor Vell's paper on the 2nd of September. At the 2nd of September meeting, it was said that we would have these publications on the 11th of November, which obviously is today. We have now heard tonight that it will be in due course. The absence of these publications is deeply concerning for a community that is already struggling with the heavy impacts of this project, as evident from the previous submission and the number of residents who are being impacted currently and will be more impacted by the roads and traffic. Our question is, where are these publications? Why were they not published tonight? Understanding they are being published in the future, why not tonight? And again, on behalf of the North and West Melbourne Association, we have invited you now. This is the second invitation to come and engage with us and with our members and with the broader local community who are impacted by the Westgate Tunnel project opening. And we've heard nothing back from council on our requests for meetings and transparency. Transparency was promised, and accountability, it's not optional. The community deserves your honesty and openness and action.
All right, thank you, Mary, for those questions, and thank you for everything you do around North and West Melbourne. I do want you to know that not a day goes by where there isn't a meeting or a discussion or effort being put into ensuring that we are getting the traffic situation in North and West Melbourne is managed as best possible as a result of the Westgate Tunnel project's opening. And there is a lot of effort going into that here at Town Hall. I might throw to Rick Quasek shortly to just provide a response as to why the information that was scheduled to come back to the Future Melbourne Committee this evening is not. But I will point out that there will be a community meeting held on the 20th of November, and so that will be a very good opportunity for the good people living in your neighbourhood to come along and go through the detail of exactly what the modelling is telling us and what are the interventions which are going to be made or will be made, have been made and or will be made or could be made through the area as a result of the traffic impacts of the Westgate Tunnel. And then there will be a meeting at the next council meeting, the 25th of November, where the information that is being sought will be reported to council. 25th of November, that's the next meeting of council. So there is definitely movement on that front as well. And Rick, I'll hand over to you for further detail.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and through you, and thanks for the question, Mary. In relation to why it wasn't at this evening's meeting, there were several items within the notice of motion that needed to be put together by the team. One of those included improvements to Hawke Street, which are proposals for undertaking treatments that will help address the impact of the Westgate Tunnel. It was unfortunate that we were unable to get those details finalised by this evening's meeting, and therefore they were scheduled for the next available meeting, which was the 25th. Also, in relation to the modelling data, because I think you're referring to that as well, Department of Transport and Planning have agreed to release the modelling data before the 19th of December, and that will be posted on the website, the Westgate Tunnel website, which has details on the treatments within the North and West Melbourne precincts there. Also, there is a proposed meeting for community on the 20th of this month, so 20th of November, where we're inviting community members to ask questions of Council and Department of Transport of the treatments, the type of modelling that helped to inform the treatments, and also any future treatments that are proposed. The intention from the Department of Transport is that over the next 6 months following the opening of the Westgate Tunnel, the treatments that have been implemented will be monitored to make sure that they're actually operating in the right way. And following the settlement of traffic patterns, those will be reassessed to ensure that they're the right outcomes. I hope that answers the question.
All right, thank you for that. Rick, do you want to add anything at this stage, Alison?
No, I think
okay. All right, thank you, Rick. Councillor Olivia Ball, I can see you have your hand raised. Do you have a question to ask?
I do. I have some questions, if I may. So can I just confirm, given there's been some dispute about the date, that there will be a community meeting on the 20th of November?
That's the case. That's
and
the case.
the Lord Mayor is confirming that? Yes, tremendous. And is it the case that will be from 6 till 7 p.m. at the West Melbourne Baptist Community Centre at 4 Miller Street in West Melbourne?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I'm just confirming that I'm not 100% sure of the time. The location is correct and the date is correct.
Thank you. And so those details will be posted on our website once they are confirmed?
They will, yes.
And is it necessary to register to attend that meeting?
Registration is preferable because it allows us to ensure that we have sufficient seating, and I believe there's a capacity of around 50 to 60 in that hall, so
I see.
It is limited.
So preferable but not necessary. So a limited capacity of 50 to 60 people is able to attend. I see. That could be oversubscribed. Has that been contemplated?
That was the location that was made available to us. So it is possible. There is an opportunity to have a follow-up meeting. We're trying to actually engage in relation to two particular items. One is around the Westgate Tunnel impacts and something that Department of Transport can assist us with in terms of the type of treatments. The second part to the conversation will be around Hawke Street and the proposals within Hawke Street.
Tremendous, thank you. So, given, if I may, I have another question. The report, which was due tonight, as Mary has pointed out, is to be on the 25th of November at that meeting that night. Therefore, it will be released on the 20th of November at usually about 2:00 in the afternoon, therefore available to the public before the community meeting that same night?
That's correct.
Great. And given that the DTP...
Ball,
yes.
we do have other people here who wish to ask questions. This is community question time.
I can ask questions at any time. That is my understanding.
You can indeed, but you're asking questions means that there are other people here who have waited the whole meeting who wish to ask questions of council, and they can't do so because the 15 minutes is going to shortly expire.
I'm sorry, is the 15 minutes, is the clock still ticking? I think there's a... Thank you, and I'm sorry about that for those who are attending. I did want to ask, given the DTP modelling is not going to be published until December, is it available to management and will it inform your report that is published on the 20th of November?
The DTP modelling was used to help inform the treatments that were implemented, the day one treatments, and it has helped inform the report that we've put together.
Thank you. That's all of my questions.
All right, I've got 1 minute left. Tony, quickly make your way to the stage, please, or the lectern.
Okay, it's really not a question. It's probably more of a statement, and I think the timing is pertinent. It's in follow-up to the submission that we had earlier that I spoke to about Sturt Street. It's not part of the submission, but it's relevant, and I just want councillors to consider. Where there was a lot of discussion about DDO 60, which is the overlay for the arts precinct there. I think we are now starting to see some unintended consequences of that overlay, particularly this development that's going ahead. There is an IGA supermarket on that site that will now be packed up and gone. There is also a medical centre in there. They are having great difficulty in finding an alternative site because They are not an arts business, and they have got developers. The Hayball one very next door wants to put them into their development, but council officers are saying, sorry, that's not acceptable because they're not an arts business. So I think it's an unintended consequence of the DDO 60, where it needs to be arts space, and they're trying to find a new home once this one goes. And it looks like Sturt Street might lose its supermarket and might lose its medical centre because the commercial spaces there must be arts. So
All right.
I'm just putting that out there, that's all.
Evan Council, did you want to respond to that question?
Thanks for the question, Tony, and through you, Lord Mayor. It's an important matter that you raised, Tony. However, I'm happy to have a conversation offline, but DDO in that area and the requirement for arts space within the development typically doesn't apply at ground level, and we absolutely support ground level activation through that precinct. So we also have our Invest Melbourne team and business concierge teams who can support some of those businesses if they're looking for new spaces and help link up with potential tenancies in the area, if that's of assistance.
That's a very important point of clarification. Much appreciated. Thank you. All right, that concludes the time for public questions. Yep.
If there are further public questions, anyone in the chamber, given that I took up time from that, I would like to move an extension of the public question time, please.
Can I see, are there any other further questions from the public in the gallery? No? So I think we've got there.
That is tremendous. Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Public questions have concluded. And we move to agenda item 10, closure of the open meeting. I call on a councillor to... Is it a question?
No, it's a comment on the closed session.
We don't have scope within our rules for comments. Do you have a question? You can ask a question at any time.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question, I think I'll direct it perhaps at Alison, our CEO, is that why we have an item coming up very soon in closed session. As you know, for quite some time now, I have voiced a displeasure at the number and frequency of items in closed session. It was even said in our annual report that metric, unfortunately, had gone the wrong way. I am disappointed to see what's coming up, regardless of the content, the fact that it's there. I think we can do better. So my question to you tonight is perhaps why we haven't done better, because I know from our talks that we're trying to, but I am very disappointed to see what I see this evening. So my question to you is why we have this item in closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Guest, for your question, and through you, Lord Mayor. This particular item has been listed for the confidential section of the council meeting because it contains personal information and that relates to individuals, and under the Local Government Act, when a report does contain personal information of that nature, it does then qualify to become a confidential item. However, I might say that I certainly am taking your feedback on board, and we will carefully consider moving forward the structure of our reports and the content of our reports, and we will ensure that it will only be where it is absolutely necessary that something needs to be confidential, that we will make it so. So I take that feedback on board.
Thank you, Alison. I think it's a worthwhile endeavour because it's the way we show respect to those people who are putting in our community, whether they be ratepayers or otherwise. But to hold things, important decisions behind closed doors does to suggest that we have something to hide, whether that's true or not.
All right. Thank you for those questions, Councillor Guest. Yeah, Councillor Lelu has a question as well.
So follow up on that. If my question is more, if what is going to be discussed, and there was no personal information attached to what will be discussed, then would that have actually qualified as a public debate? because we're not actually debating, I guess, the person, but rather the substance of whether or not thing. So I would have thought that there would have been an opportunity to discuss, I guess, whether or not we proceed with, I guess, the substance, but not actually include the details of the people that is being discussed. Then would that have actually qualified for a public debate rather than in confidential?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Leilu, and through you, Lord Mayor. It is a difficult question to answer because it's quite theoretical, and it's difficult to respond to that without going into the detail of the report that Council's about to consider. So I would just again reiterate the comments that I've made to Councillor Guest's question, which is that moving forward we'll certainly very carefully consider the content of those reports, whether they trigger any consideration around confidentiality or not, and whether they're necessary for inclusion. Thank you.
All right, I call on a councillor to move the motion displayed on the screen that will close the meeting to the public to consider an item of confidential business. Looking for a mover of that motion. Councillor Camillo, second Councillor Rouse. All those in favour, please raise their hands. It's a procedural motion to close the open meeting. I'm declaring that carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Ball, I'm just confirming you were voting in favour of closing the meeting. Yep, great, and you did as well, Councillor Guest. So that is carried. So that means I can thank members of the public for their interest and attendance and declare the open meeting closed at 9:02 p.m. Thank you, Melburnians, one and all.